It is 6:30 on April 24th. We're here tonight for a special workshop agenda, having a quorum. It is 6:30. I'm calling the meeting to order. In this work session, I just want to remind the folks in the audience that at these type of things we don't normally have, it's a part of our rules and procedures that we don't have folks sign up to make comments because council is getting an abundance of information. We are not voting on anything tonight. There will always be time for public input at a later date, but right now we're just trying to receive information. You can tell by the agenda that we are, this is the first look at the next fiscal year's budget. It's a look ahead, and with that, I believe there's no we're going in order the way it's on the agenda.
Yeah, I'm going to introduce them, and then we will certainly kick it off.
All right, so we're on item 2A, discuss fire department budgetary needs for fiscal year 2020. City Manager.
Mayor and Council, as you will recall, typically this is the conversation every year where we begin to introduce budgetary priorities. Last year we talked about streets at this particular meeting. We reviewed the pavement condition index study that we had and introduced to you that one of the budget priorities was street maintenance, and we funded year 1 and 2 of the street maintenance budget. That's what we're doing tonight. So this will be the third budget that I have built as your city manager, and we have focused to this point on infrastructure. Water and sewer was really first and foremost, so we're satisfied that we will be able to continue to flush toilets and the water will continue to run. We have worked on our pavement condition index, and we are in the process of completing year 3 of our street maintenance program. We identified last year the need to repair the bridge, and we're in the process of that being a little bigger deal than we anticipated. So along the lines of infrastructure, many people don't stop and think about the fact that equipment is a part of the city's infrastructure. We're a service organization. We have employees that serve, but in order to serve, they have to have equipment. And so in this year's budget, our priority is going to be equipment replacement. We are now to a place that quite a bit of our fleet is aging. It's now becoming to a point that we are debating the reliability of particular pieces of equipment. Next year, this time, we're going to talk about building maintenance and park maintenance. So in the multi-year, we have to eat this elephant one bite at a time. That will help you understand this time next year what we'll be talking about. But this year, it really is equipment. And specifically, it's fire and police. One of the things that will be my #1 priority in the fiscal year 20 budget is going to be the fire department. And so this will be the first time you've heard from our new chief, Andreas Rosales. And I have asked him to kind of take you on a journey, if you will. Built into this presentation is going to be Fire 101. He's going to explain to you all of the rules and regulations that are mandated at a federal level and what that looks to like to us at a local level. Because every rule and regulation has to be followed, and I'd like to tell you that they're cheap, but they're not. So every one of these rules has some piece of equipment that we have to maintain to a standard. The end game, and the reason that we're going to discuss this with you, is we are significantly short in funding the needs of this department to the federal standards, probably to the tune of about $50,000 or $60,000 a year. But it's not acceptable to not do it. So hence why I have asked Andreas to take you on this journey. He has done a magnificent job. Very, very, very proud of the PowerPoint. I think he does a great job of explaining the whys, backs it up with data. We are to a place in the fire department that we need to put together a multi-year plan to begin to address our fire equipment. Even though some of our fire equipment is not old, it's not reliable. And when you're in the fire and police business, you're judged by your response time, period, end of story. So we need to talk about what the function of the fire department is and what equipment they need, because I'm not one for replacing what we have. I'm interested in replacing for the need. And so in some instances, we might buy a different piece of equipment, but tonight we're going to talk to you about a piece of equipment that we need that we do not have. We need to talk about the vehicle replacement process for the organization as a whole. And so Tracy, with the help of Trey, will talk about what I call the white goods. That's the white pickup trucks, the white sedans that you buy, that you slap your logo on. So we separate those from the yellow iron, the fire, and police that are the special equipment. So we'll be talking about that as well. In next year's budget, we are to a place where we have to replace a big chunk of our police fleet. So Chief Nagy has done a great job with the help of the committee reviewing the options of police cars. And I'm sure that while you probably don't track this the way we do, it's no surprise that the Crown Vic was the standard cop car for years and years and years and years and years. And then all of a sudden, Ford quit making Crown Vics. And so everybody kind of got in the police vehicle market, and there's no clear winner. So Chief Nagy's going to take you on the journey of what's the answer and why we're not making a decision, and you'll appreciate what I mean by that when he gets through with this presentation. And then Chief Rosales is going to close the program this evening with the need for a position in the fire department to do fire inspections and plan reviews. We all know that with the building Bastrop code process, we are going to be significantly relying on the international codes for the life safety piece of that. Well, the fire codes are a huge piece of that life safety. And it is now to a place where we need a full-time position to do that. And I think when Chief Rosales goes through his presentation, you'll appreciate the amount of work that's being done with what we have. So I hope that you will find tonight's work session to be very informative. The Chief has brought some equipment so that it's show and tell, in hopes that we can educate you on some things maybe you knew about the fire department but forgot, or maybe you learned something this evening, because we will not be asking for any decision tonight. We don't have a plan. The whole point of this is to tell you it's a problem, why it's a problem, and between now and when we work through the budget in our workshops, we'll be coming back with some plans. But this is just kind of the beginning of the conversation, if you will. So with that, Chief, it's all yours.
Mayor, Council, City Manager, we'll start with our presentation here. We'll jump right in. Kick it off with who are we? So what is the fire department? Currently, we're a combination fire department. We have one full-time fire chief, which is myself. We have 22 part-time day staff. They're on staff, but there's only 3 positions staffed per day. So out of the 22, there's only 3 of them on during the day, 12 hours a day, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. Basically, they take shift bids, and they can only work, it's 2 shifts per week, comes out to 24 hours. It's mandatory 32-hour kind of deal, so we keep them at a minimum of 24 hours a week to keep them at the part-time level, part-time hours. We have 20 volunteer staffs. They're on call 24 hours a day, with availability being the limiting factor. They come from home, they come from work. It depends on if they're off work or if they're just sitting around the house. Some of them sit around the station if they're off from their normal job. A lot of them are career firefighters at other agencies. We have one from North Hayes. We have a couple from City of Leander. So we have a variety of volunteers. We also have one contract fire inspector, and I left out one volunteer fire inspector. Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, we have 22 part-time that are paid.
So yeah, so we have 3 paid positions, but we have 22 I guess, a pool of 22 people that staff those 3 part-time positions.
As opposed to the volunteer staff, which is not paid.
Which is not paid, correct.
That's all I need. Thank you.
Yeah, the volunteers do receive a stipend. It's a per-call stipend. They also, just as of as of April, we started allowing certain levels of the certification within the volunteers to be able to pick up shifts. So now they're able to participate in the part-time members. But again, that's kind of a limited pool. We try to keep it pretty limited because the schedule fills up pretty quick with 3 positions.
Andres, can I
Yes,
add,
ma'am.
on the 20 volunteer staff, they're on call, but when you send out a call, it's volunteer, so you don't know how many people are going to answer.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I have no idea
You may
how many.
get 1, you may get 19.
Absolutely.
Probably not getting 19.
I'm probably going to get 19. And we'll get into that as we get through I'll show you what our averages are, and we'll get into that as we
Okay.
go
I
further
didn't
in.
know if, as a volunteer, they make a commitment to be available X amount of times or whatever.
Yeah, so when you sign on as a volunteer, you do commit. We have a commitment, and we put it up front that it's 24 hours call. That call, we never know when it's going to come in, 3 a.m., 5 a.m., during the day, we don't know. And so they do have to commit to a certain number of calls at a certain percentages in order to maintain their membership with the fire department. And so, and in return, we invest in them. We send them to training, we do things. And so we have a reciprocating relationship. But any other questions with the volunteers? Okay. Like I said, we have 1 contract fire inspector and we have 1 volunteer fire inspector. So our contracted fire inspector, he's only here 2 days a week, and we'll get into him further as we get into the presentation. And our volunteer fire inspector is is my assistant chief, Chief Stradling, and he helps and he participates and tries to assist with our current fire inspector. So talk about some standards, rules, and regulations, and these are pretty much not optional. We are mandated by them because we do have career firefighters. The part-time staff, we're because of them, the Texas Commission on Fire Protection regulates them part-time and full-time. The State Firefighters and Fire Marshals Association, they regulate our volunteers, and so they're the ones that certify our volunteers to a certain level, and so that they're meeting the expectations. Our Department of State Health Services, DSHS, they regulate our EMS service. All of our part-time members are, and including myself, are all certified in medical, whether it's a paramedic, an EMT basic, or EMT intermediate. So there's 3 levels. But all of the part-time and full-time are required to have that certification in order to work here, including some of our volunteers, they have it as well. Insurance Services Office, ISO, as a standardized insurance rating. That's very important to us, especially homeowners and business owners. They kind of set a standard for us to meet to fulfill its staffing levels, its our equipment, and our water system. They pretty much come in and they evaluate your entire city, from the whole fire department, your water department. They evaluate it and they give you a rating, and usually it's 2 ratings. We're a 4-6 rating, so we have an ISO 4 and an ISO 6. And there's a difference in those depending on your distance from fire hydrants and your distance from a fire station. So 5 road miles from a fire station and within 1,000 feet of a fire hydrant gives you those different numbers. And then based on that is what your insurance company takes that rating, and then they base your homeowner's insurance based on that, as well as your commercial insurance.
Is the ISO a state office?
It's a national office. Yeah. It's a national office. They evaluate all the fire departments. They actually evaluate you for free. There's no charge to the city for that. It's not all insurances are mandatory or are required to follow ISO, but most of them use that number as as a bottom line to set your insurance rates. Yes, ma'am.
So just so the people watching is clear, the better rate our fire department gets, when they rate that, is the better rates our property owners have on
Correct.
their insurance. So
Correct.
It's a good investment to keep the rating good, because we get it in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. I just want to make
Absolutely.
sure people understood that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the lower our rating is, closer to a 1. So the 1 is the best, and 10 is the worst. And so the closer you are to a 1, the less you pay on your insurance rates. And the further out you get, the more you pay. And so typically outside the city where there's limited fire hydrants, your ISO rating could be a 10. And then as you get in, I think our ESD number 2 is the same as us, is a 4.6 as well. And so Tahitian, most of the areas in Tahitian are a 6. Everything inside the city is generally a 4 for us. But our goal for the next 2 years is to bring that ISO rating to a 1 or a 2. I would like to see a 1, but we're going to shoot for a 2, and if we get a 1, I'll be clapping. So, yes. So that's a goal for us to set. Again, it's all based on equipment. It's all based on a lot of things, and so we have to get some things in place first before we can go out and then ask for that ISO rating. The next one is the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA. They set standards for fire protection, fire suppression. They evaluate these every 3 to 5 years. Those standards change. Those standards regulate our equipment. They regulate our manpower, our staffing levels. Basically, they just set national standards for firefighting. And so every fire department uses this standard in the nation. And so everybody looks to them. But they do evaluate, and we try to change and keep up with them. TCFP at the top, who regulates us, they adopt NFPA standards, and so we are required to keep up. So every time a new standard comes out, we have to move to that standard. And I'll kind of go over that as we get into the equipment. We'll talk more about NFPA, but you'll see them a lot throughout the slide. The Federal Highway Administration Traffic Incident Management Program, that's our safe practices for traffic incidents. So when we go to a traffic accident or we're working anywhere along the highways or even just a municipal street, we are regulated by these guys to maintain a safe working area within the accident so that our first responders are taken care of and they're safe. So we'll talk about them as we get into accidents through here. So, any questions about the standards?
You need more acronyms.
Acronyms, absolutely. Fire departments and it's FEMA. They love acronyms, so you'll see a lot of them. So what do? So I've set up six different categories for what we do, and we're going to hit each one. We're going to talk about them. So we'll go to our next slide here. So motor vehicle accidents. We work a lot of passenger vehicles collisions. We do commercial motor vehicle collisions. And within those collisions, you can have extrications, traffic control, and general cleanup. As you can see there on the slide, it's this was an 18-wheeler that rolled over, and we had to clean the highway. He put debris all over the highway. So we do a general cleanup before TxDOT or any of the tow trucks get there. It's important, as you know, with the last couple of months, we've had lots of accidents. We do lots of training on this. We spend annually, we're required to use our tools, and I have a tool here for it. Use our tools to be sharp with them because they change a lot. The cars change. Every year, a new car is coming out. So every year, we have to learn new strategies about how we are able to get into a car that's crushed. And so it's important that the guys train. We bring our company that we buy our tools from. They come, they provide free training to us, and we get the local tow truck companies to donate cars to us. We cut the cars up, and we use them as training. And then we give them back to the tow companies, and then they go and they I don't know what they do with them. I'm sure they get them crushed or whatnot. But we do a lot of training with this. This is important. Our number one car that's everybody in the whole nation's kind of having issues with is Tesla. So it's built strong. It's sturdy, and so the other one is Subaru. Is it Subaru? I think so. Yeah, Subaru. Subaru is our other one. They have real thick walls, and so it's very different when you cut into them and how they operate, and that's important with your patient when you're working around your patient. So, but again, the traffic incident management, it's important. We have certain distances that you put out, certain distances in how you put out cones, how you position your vehicles. Where you work at within your incident, and that's how you keep our responders safe. We have something that we're working with the city manager on is a blocker vehicle. What that vehicle does is we put it out there instead of putting our fire engine or a police car out there that costs us quite a bit of money, we put out a vehicle that's called a blocker vehicle, and when it gets crushed, it's a different mechanism that closes, so you can have it kind of reset, and we see it a lot with on TxDOT on highways where it's kind of got barrels, and they crush in, and then you can pull those back out, and they're kind of spring loaded.
It's important because you don't go to the Chevrolet dealership and buy a fire engine. You have to order them from 12 to 14 to 15 months, and it's a big deal. So if you have a fire engine that functions to save the life of your first responders, you no longer have the equipment you need because we don't have depth here. So as we try to right size our fleet, we need to make sure we're using the right equipment for the right thing and not unintentionally crippling ourselves.
So that blocker vehicle serves as a portable guardrail.
Guardrail, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So we don't take our expensive fire trucks out of service.
Do people run into those a lot? Is that where they're spring loaded or whatever?
Yes. Unfortunately, you are seeing more and more distracted drivers, and so they are running over fire trucks. The city of Rowlett has lost 3 police cars in about the last 3 months from people running into them as blocker vehicles. The city of Fort Worth lost a blocker vehicle. The city of Hillsborough had a fire engine totaled on 35. So more and more distracted drivers are putting our first responders at risk. And so it's imperative that we protect them, but we can't get out of the fire business when we do that. And that's the risk we run today.
Absolutely. So we'll move to our next box, wildland fires. So as we all know, we're susceptible to these in the county, and as well as some areas of the city. We do brush fires, grass fires, and they're all generally called wildland fires. And then we also deal with a lot of control burns within the city, and then those tend to cause the other two. So the control burns will get out of control, and they cause the brush fires, the grass fires. There's lots of refreshers. TCFP requires that we have an annual refresher on this. We also have to deploy our shelters. Our shelters are these bags here. They're aluminum foil, basically. Looks like the popcorn popper bag, kind of pops up. So you pop that and you get in it. Should a fire overrun the firemen, they get inside that, and that's what they use to protect themselves should the fire for some reason get out of control while they're out there fighting it. They're all required to carry it, but it is part of our refresher, and we're required to do that training. We're required to get inside those things and use them. We actually just did that this last Thursday. That was part of our training this last Thursday. Next Thursday is our brush truck training. We're getting ready for wildland season. So this season, every summer, we know we've had a wet winter, and so we know this summer is going to be hot. It's going to dry out, and we're going to have the grass fires, the brush fires, and we may not see a lot of that inside the city, but we definitely have it come towards the city, and we definitely go assist our partners. But extinguishment. We make them cold every fire we go to. We don't leave until it's been extinguished. We don't leave any unless it's just something out in the middle of the state park where there's a lot of what we call snags, where there are trees that have possibility of falling over. We'll leave those burning overnight, but we always leave somebody with it. We leave it contained with lines. But cleanup. But we spend an average about 2 hours per acre. So we have a 3-acre fire. We're there for 6 hours. And so, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Oh, I just want to make a comment. Got to come up with a better name than popcorn popper.
Popcorn popper? Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, that they reference that, but yeah, it's just it's very thin foil that we get inside of, and it's interesting when you do the training and to see what the videos you watch when you go to the training and how people survive in those things, and it's a lot of times. It's the videos in Arizona or California that you're watching those videos. But yeah, popcorn popper, that's definitely, yeah. But yeah, we spend an average of 2 hours. We're there extended. These usually exhaust our resources pretty quickly. Luckily, we have a very good partner within the county, Texas Forestry Service. They're stationed between here in Smithville, right across from La Cabana. They're right across the street from there. They're stationed here in Bastrop. So anytime we have a large wildland, we try to do like 10 acres or more. we will call them, and they'll come out and assist us. They'll bring dozers, they'll bring manpower, and so they're a great partner to us. So emergency medical services is our next slide. We do this a lot, so this is probably a lot of our calls. We assist with critical life-threatening medical calls. We first respond, and this has to do with we'll get there. We may be waiting for the medical transport. We may be waiting for the ambulance to come to transfer care, but we are there first. We try to beat them. We have a really quick, short, especially if we're sitting at the station and it's a block from our station. We have a really good response time. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to add that this is an area where I anticipate we will start doing more and more of this. The county has a contract with Acadia Medical Services, and it's Bastrop County, Smithville, Elgin, and the city of Bastrop. And in the past week, there have been 7 instances when there's been no ambulance in this county. Yes, that's in violation of the contract. Yes, they do get liquidated damages, but it doesn't change the fact there's no box in the county. So we are heavily dependent on the first responders. We're heavily dependent on the fire department. Chief Rosales and Eric are due a life safety award. Not too long ago, they were able to save the life of somebody that had quit breathing. Fortunately, we had that level of capability in the community and were able to save that gentleman's life. So this is an area where we've already seen 19 fatalities this year in Bastrop County. Very clearly, this level of training and expectation, I think, will have to quit being delivered by a third party. And I think as a county, we're going to have to start talking about how we can move toward an agency that's housed here or the fire departments to start doing more of this, because I think the public assumes it's available, and that would be an incorrect assumption.
Yes. Yeah, we do a lot of first responding. We during the daytime, right now we listen to the radio. We get a text message that of the closest call if we're close. If medical needs assistance, and we'll jump the call and we'll go. We'll self-assign ourselves and we'll go to those calls. Some of the ones that we also do is a lift assist. If somebody just needs help out of bed, we'll go there. If somebody just fell on the floor and they just need to, just anything like that, we'll go. Even if EMS just needs it, if it's I'm trying to think of maybe some scenario, but lift assist is important. They EMS calls us quite a bit for those, so we'll go and assist with them. Motor vehicle accidents, as we all know, we do those quite a bit. We're usually there really quick with waiting for EMS. This motor vehicle accident will also overwhelm EMS pretty quickly. Usually you get one ambulance with 2 personnel, and so if you have 4 people in a car, you've already overwhelmed your 2 medics, because usually it's 2 people per patient. And so fire department will assist with them and not just extricating the victim out of the vehicle, but we'll also assess them. We have the same equipment as the ambulance, and we'll also use the ambulance equipment, and we'll be there with them to help them out. This also is required EMT basic training at a minimum, but we also have some paramedics and some intermediate level, but it does require lots of CE hours. We work with the Bastrop County First Responder Organization. We partner with them. They provide the training. We also partner with PHI. They do training with us as well. And so we spend a lot of time doing medical training as well as all the fire stuff that we do. So, any question? So fire prevention. Fire prevention is a whole lot of things all in one. It's plan development reviews, fire inspections, fire investigations, and those 3 are highlighted because I'm going to talk about those heavily here later on in the presentation. But code enforcement, community outreach, public education, special use permits. So as far as code enforcement is going in and just, we talk about WUI. WUI is the Wildland Urban Interface. We have a lot of that in the Tahitian area where, we talk about pulling your pine needles out of your gutters. just another avenue of how you keep up with your house and stuff like that during wildland season. But community outreach is getting out there, getting to the schools. We go to the schools every October. We do Fire Prevention Month in October. We'll go to the schools and we'll present to them and do stop, drop, and roll. We'll do all kinds of different. We'll take the fire engines. The kids love the fire engines. They climb all over them. And so we do a lot of that. We also do public education. We go to the high schools. We'll show them our gear. We'll talk about how do you get a degree in fire protection, what that does for you. And so not only do you have to, a degree in basket weaving, but you can get a degree in fire protection and follow your dream through there. So it's relatively new, and so it's basket weaving. Yeah. Basket weaving, yeah, absolutely. So it's been a long team. So fire protection is relatively new, and it's actually you can do a 2-year degree, and you can also do the 4-year, which is new because it used to be only a 2-year degree. So that's new for us. Special use permits, we work a lot with the special events. We'll go down there and we'll do tent inspections. We'll just make sure the overcrowding, stuff like that. We'll do a lot of that. And we'll talk about that with fire inspections and then plan development. Special operations. So this is a lot of our specialties that we do. We do hazardous materials. We actually don't have a hazmat team in the county. We have some of our members are trained, all of our part-time staff is trained to at least the minimum of an operation level. So you have awareness, you have operations, and you have a technician. All of our members are awareness or operation level. We have a very few number of technicians. Technicians, the difference between the two is a technician is the one that puts on the suit and goes and does the work. An operation is kind of back a little ways, and he's kind of judging what do we do kind of deal. So we have very few of those. We have a lot of regional partners that we use. We have the city of San Marcos has a hazmat team. The city of Austin has a hazmat team. The reason that is hazmat is very expensive. The uniforms are very expensive, and they have a expiration date. So when you buy them, they're only good for maybe 2 or 3 years, and then you got to throw them away, even if you don't use them. So we don't use them that often, so that's why we partner with the city of Austin and those other agencies. So when we do have the issue, we're able to mitigate the issue for the time it takes for them to get here. Confined space, we deal with this very few, but we do have where we have a lot of construction going on, and so when you're digging ditches, those are considered confined space. We also have some other areas that we have a silo up north. I've been up there before on a guy that fell into a grain silo, and so that's a confined space rescue for us. Again, we partner with a lot of the region because again that equipment is very expensive, and plus the training is very extensive, and so we do have some members that are trained, but the equipment is very few and far between. We do have enough to mitigate and start, but we will have to call in mutual aid again. Swift water rescue. Unfortunately, we are all pretty well trained in this. We spend quite a few. It's 2 different levels. You have Technician 1, Technician 2. Technician 1 is a 40-hour class. Technician 2 is an additional 40-hour class, so a total of 8. And you have to renew it every 3 years. And so you go to, we either go to Wimberley or we go to New Braunfels, and we do swift water training with different agencies. And our guys actually get in the water. They do this. You get in, you do this, what we call the rapids. They put you in the rapids, and you learn how to do swift water. And we'll talk about the boats and stuff. We have those as well. We do boat training with that as well, where we're doing swift water boat rescues. We participate in that. High angle, low angle rescue. We've actually done a couple of these, but they are again few and far between. We try to again. ESD number 2 has the majority of these. The power plant is one of them. Which got I think 100-foot elevation on some of their platforms, and then they also have confined space, and so we partnered with LCRA. They purchased some equipment, and then we house it at ESD 2. And so if we ever need high angle, we ever need that low angle rescue, they have the equipment, and we can just call them as mutual aid, and they'll come and do it. And as well, they're going to call because we have some folks that are trained to that level, and so we will go assist them if they need. Yes, sir.
How do you use the term angle?
High angle. So if you have let's say a top of a house, and most of the time we're working at an angle, and so they call it high angle for that reason. You're working in like a A-frame type deal.
Okay.
I'm not sure why they call it an angle. Do you know why? Yeah, that's what I would have guessed. It was an A-frame. We always work on an angle. Everything we do is an angle. Ladders are at an angle. All that is they teach you at certain angles. So it's a good question. That's not on the 101 of high angle. So
Thank you.
So our next one is trench rescue. Again, it goes back to confined space. We do have a lot of. Fortunately, since I've been here, I haven't done this one. We do have some members that are trained in trench rescue, but it goes back to confined space, and so anybody that's done confined space will usually be certified in trench rescue. Structural collapse, and this can be anything from a tornado to a fire. We have a fire going on, and the fires burn and then the structure collapses. And so anything structural collapse is just a wall that falls in. And so if you have a patient that's in the building and the building's collapsed, there's very certain ways that you get those individuals out. And so there's a lot of training that goes into this. I think we only have one person that is certified in this, and so this would again be one of we would bring in resources. Texas Task Force 1 is a great one. They come out during large events like a tornado event, when you have a tornado that goes or some other disaster. They would come out and assist us with that. Wilderness rescue, lost persons. We do this as well in wildland. When you're out for long periods of time, we have certain packs, certain things that we do for wilderness rescues. We have certain setups for those, as well as lost persons. We have special training that we do to do grid searches and stuff like that. And so we have done this, especially down in the Tahitian area. We've done this out, and the elderly's wandered off and dementia, and we've had to go locate them. So we've done those kind of things. Gas leaks, odor calls. Gas leaks are highly important to us. Can't remember the town. Even Georgetown, I think, here has been dealing with gas leaks. They had a whole neighborhood and businesses that were closed for a while. And so this is a big deal for us. When we get one, we take it very serious. We have lots of meters. We have 2 sets of meters. We always back one up with the other just to verify that you never know, one could be acting up that day, so we back it up. Just a little bit of gas can cause an issue, and so we take those very serious when we get an odor call. Most of the time it's a strange smell type call, and so we'll start off with our meters, and we'll kind of be detectives and figure out where that's coming from. But everything I've listed there is very specialized training. It requires lots of annual renewals, annual training, and it's every year we send our guys to Teaks in College Station. We're lucky to have them just up the road, and so we'll send them up there to get the specialized training. They'll come back, but they're there for a whole week.
I asked Andreas to spend some time talking to you about this because I want people to appreciate that we operate on an island. Every one of these, he said, we have to call for mutual aid. Mutual aid's not just around the corner. It's not a 5 or 10 minute trip. In some instances, it's 30 minutes. In some instances, it's an hour plus. So these guys have to bridge the call until the help shows up. So it's important that we recognize he's going to go through and show you most of what we do. We hope we never do this, but we have to be prepared. We have to train. So I wanted him to really spend some time on this because when you mentioned the fire department, people start and stop at structure fires. That's less than 5% of what they do. And so I really wanted people to appreciate that this isn't something we do, but with the exception of about 2 things on here, Andreas has been here long enough that he's done all of these. They do happen. We do have LCRA as a power plant. We do have Griffin Industries that's a rendering plant. We do have some manufacturing companies out in the county, and as he goes through this program, nobody operates by themselves. Not only do we need mutual aid, but they call us for help. So all of this is part of what goes into a fire department that we never stop and think about.
Yes, ma'am. Fire suppression, as the city manager just said.
Quick question.
Yes,
Chief. On the ISO, the access to the mutual aid influences that ISO, does it not?
Absolutely.
And that connectivity?
Absolutely. The connectivity and also what they have, and they count towards some of our ratings. And we can, as long as agreements are in place, we can use them in our ratings. But we have to have certain agreements, and they have to have certain equipment as well. So, but yes, excellent. Fire suppression, residential structure fires, commercial structure fires, and vehicle fires. These actually represent approximately less than 5% of our actual calls, and I'll go over what our call volume kind of looks like, but these are actually less than 5%. But this again goes back to our low frequency and our high risk. These are high risk for us, but they are very low on our frequency list. But this is what we train for the most. We do this the most, or we do this the less, but we train for this the most. Because this will put a tax on our resources very quickly. On that picture up there is actual house fire over in the new neighborhood, Pecan Park. Yes, sir. That was we had two levels of mutual aid on that one. We had ESD2 and I believe ESD1 as well. But we had 2 levels of mutual aid on that call, and it's very taxing on us. But vehicle fires as well. This is an actual fire that I was on up on 95 at a gas station. Luckily it never got big enough. The engine actually was pulled up and was fixing to drop a line. So, but again, less than 5%, but it's what we do.
What
Yes,
caused that fire in Pecan Park?
I am not 100% sure. That was before me being a chief, and I was actually with the ESD, so I'm not I could probably get you an answer. So our 2018 incident statistics, like I said, structure fires are 2%, vehicle fires are 3% of our call volume, and this is for 2018. 35% were vehicle accidents, 18% were some false alarms, and that could be anything from a gas odor to the smoke detector went off to a CO, carbon monoxide detector going off. And then as you see, EMS calls are about 10%. And then we have some mixture of where we do EMS on our vehicle accidents. We spend about an average of 1,000 hours last year, just volunteer hours. That was not our part-time guys. That was our actual volunteers. They spent 1,000 hours on calls last year in 2018. But altogether, we spent about 1,600 hours with our part-timers, and so about 600 of that was part-timers.
Chief,
yes,
real quick on that last slide, it looks like 18% of your 18% of your calls were has condition, no fires. What can you give me an example?
So that could have been an actual gas leak versus a false alarm gas leak, where we got called for a gas leak and there wasn't anything found. The hazardous condition could have been an actual gas leak. It could have been a fuel spill at the gas station. It could have been there's several different categories in there. Within that hazardous condition, but it just means that when we got there was no actual fire. The fire wasn't involved. If it is a fire, it moves to one of the other categories. So how do we do it? So it's important: apparatus, equipment, staffing, and fire codes. This is basically our heart of the fire department. How without those things, we can't perform. So our current apparatus, we're going to get involved in our apparatus, and I'll have to break these down, and I'm going to tell you what each one is, and I'm going to tell you the difference between an engine, a tender, and a rescue. Currently, we have 2 engines. An engine is what you see there on the slide there. An engine is something that pumps water, so water comes in, water goes out. A tender is kind of like a tanker, but we use tender instead of a tanker. because our tenders actually are pumps. They have pumps inside of them to be able to push water, so they can act as an engine if needed, but they carry more than they carry a large amount of water. And we'll talk about the tender. I'll show you a picture of it when we get in here. We have one rescue truck that has no water, absolutely. It's just a truck. We have 2 brush trucks, which are for wildland calls. And we have 2 command vehicles, 1 utility vehicle, and then 2 boats. And we'll get in here and talk about each one. So engine 11. As you see there, that is an actual picture of engine 11. It's a 2014 Ferrara. It's called an MVP, which stands for multi-vocational pumper. It's got 1,000 gallons of water. It's a 2,000 GPM pump, which means it pumps 2,000 gallons a minute. But it only carries 1,000. So if you're pumping at 1,000 gallons a minute, you got 2 minutes worth of water. So it goes pretty quick. Its age is 6. We expect to replace it in 15 years. And purpose is multi-use rescue, suppression pumper. And so we do have some current maintenance challenges with this truck. It's got a recurring coolant leak. We haven't been able to, we've had 2 different companies diagnose it and haven't been able to figure out exactly where it's coming from. But we're still working through it with different companies to try to narrow it in where it's at. But we put about a gallon of coolant in every about 5 days. And so if you know, on an 18-wheeler type truck, the stuff's not cheap. So we're trying to narrow it down where it's at. Service calls, the last 2 months, it's spent quite a bit of time out of service. It's been had some transmission issues. It was in Buda for about 3 weeks over the last 2 months. So it spent a lot of time in Buda versus being here and in service. Hopefully we've got the transmission. They replaced a wiring harness on it. So hopefully that was the issue. It was warranty work, so we didn't get a charge for it. But it was an issue. It did put the truck out of service. It wouldn't go into gear, or it wouldn't come out of gear. So it would stay in gear, and so we had lots of issues. So we got it fixed. But it does have lots of reoccurring service calls with it. The engine that's inside this truck is a Cummins model. It's a 2014 model, and it's known to have lots of issues. Ferrara has identified that as one of their deals. During that year model, they had some issues. So we are aware of that, and the maintenance guy, they come by, and he's like, yep, I know. So we do, because of the issues, we have biannual preventive maintenance. We have a company that comes by. They come by in January, and they'll come by in June. They'll service the truck from head to toe. They'll inspect everything, run through it. We have you can only have certain people work on them because they're emergency vehicle technicians, and so they work on the pump, they work on the emergency lights. They're certified in the truck. They know everything about it. Plus, you can only have certain companies because it's specific to the brand, and so certain people can come out and work on them. So, but we do biannual maintenance on them to try to keep up with the issues that are occurring with them. Significant concern about reliability. So that is a huge thing for us. It was down 3 weeks, the last 2 months. When it's not here, that means we're down to either one engine, or we borrow an engine from another agency. ESD2 has graciously let us borrow their engine twice in the last 2 months, just to allow us to have an additional engine in town. And so it's an issue when you're concerned or you can't sleep at night because you're not sure if when the guys go to that call and they go to start it, that it starts, or that it goes in gear, or it does what it needs to do. And so that's a concern for us. And so even though it's 6 years old, it's still a concern. So and the replacement is 15 years, and that's based off, and I'll go into the NFPA rules and where they talk about those. But it's something that keeps all of us up at night.
This truck will not see 15 years. Let me just go ahead and cut to the chase.
That's where I was going. We're having this kind of problem, and the expected replacement's 15 years.
That is the expected life of a fire engine. Typically what you see is 10 years of frontline service, and 5 years in a reserve, and it will never make it. And that's part of the reason for tonight, is people would look at the age of that truck and say, oh, it's a great truck. What he's telling you tonight is there's nothing good about it. And all we have is our response time. And so it's one of those things that we are not at the end of our rope, but we're close. and that may be one of those that we have to expedite. It's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, if it can't respond and we can't sleep because we're not sure it responds, it's time. So that's where we're at.
What's the range of a new one? And I know you do all the research and all that, and I won't hold you to the. Is it $100,000?
So,
$500,000? $20 million?
So base model is probably in the 650 range. Fully equipped, everything on them is probably in the 850 range. And then again, it depends on what we get.
When we get to the aerial, it's about 1.1 million, but a typical fire engine like this, and this falls under the category of you get what you pay for. You buy cheap, you get cheap. These are specific pieces of equipment. They're built to take a beating, and there's some places where it just doesn't pay to be low bid, and buying a low bid engine, you get what you pay for.
And then it lasts 15 years.
Yes, absolutely.
As Councilman Benitez, I just want to throw out there, 15 years is just on paper.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
You won't get it.
So they won't give you a good trade-in because they have a vehicle that has some known issues?
No, ma'am. They are in the business to make money. It's buy at your own risk. And so let me tell you what the problem with this is that it's got a Cummins engine. So Ferrara is going to blame Cummins, and that's part of the problem with these big engines or these big pieces of equipment. Not to make this a truck driving story, but Travis and I own a big tractor, an 18-wheeler, and we made the choice to buy a Packard truck and a Packard engine, so when they pointed at each other, they pointed back. Because that is a huge problem in the trucking industry is you buy one brand of truck and a different engine, and they're always doing this. It's nobody's responsibility. And so if we went to the fire manufacturer and tried to hold them accountable, they'd blame it on Cummins. And there lies the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk about the replacement and further in the presentation. So engine 11 this is all the equipment that is on that truck. This is the manufacturer. This is how it comes to us. Every piece of equipment we generally have on our truck right now. I'll kind of break some of these down. Over here is the water rescue equipment. Up there is generally all the structure firefighting equipment. And so we're kind of going back to all those tasks that we have. We cram every piece of equipment we can onto these things. Over here's our structure fire SCBAs, some hose on that side over there.
SCBA stands for self-contained breathing, which is what they need to go into a fire and still be able to breathe.
Yes, ma'am. Acronym, sorry. Rescue tools for working on vehicles, doing extrications for vehicle accidents. And in the middle is our rescue equipment. And then you got ladders at the bottom. We have scene equipment there, and then on the top you have foam and rescue jacks for vehicle extrications. So again, everything we can, we cram it in there, and we try to, do we all use it? Not on every call, but it's there when we need it. We don't have to go back to the station. It comes to us. So our next engine is engine 21. It stays downtown. It's a 2003 Ferrara International. It's 750 gallons of water. It's a 1500 GPM pump. Its age is 16 years. Its expected replacement per NFPA is 15 years. Its purpose is strictly just a fire suppression pump. It's just a pump. It doesn't have near as many tools as the other one does. It's kind of a smaller version of the last one. Its maintenance challenges is we still do its preventive maintenance. We got to keep up with it because of its age. It doesn't have very many miles. I think it's less than 15,000 miles because it's here or there. It's just a couple miles. But its age and its hours, its running time. It's sitting there on a scene running. Its hours are quite high. It's one problem we have is it does burn oil right now. It's just the age of the truck. It's got an oil burn. So we try to keep it topped off. We check on it, and then we keeping up with the maintenance. That's highly important.
Now, I want to give you some perspective because I asked the chief, I said if you had to get rid of engine 11, that's 2014, or get rid of engine 21 that's 2003, he'd keep this one over the other one.
Absolutely. Yeah, it may burn oil, but it turns on and it goes. So,
Question, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Is the acquisition of the FARs a result of the low bid process, in your mind?
Generally, yes. Yeah, generally, and it also comes down to who can get us, who has the shorter manufacture time. So usually these guys have a shorter manufacture time where their turnaround time to us, and once we purchase to delivery, is shorter. The Engine 11 was a demo truck, so it was brought here, and they had I guess a lower price, and so it was purchased on site. Like they brought it here, they said this is what we want, and they took it. And so versus going out for bids and doing the different versus a custom build.
Speeding up the process seems to bring into question the fit and finish of that equipment.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Tender 23. Tender 23 is, again, like I said, it's basically a tanker. It's a 2008 Ferrara Freightliner. It's a 2,000 gallon. It's got 1,000 GPM pump. And so you saw the other trucks. The last one was 750 gallons of water. The one before was 1,000. So this one's got 2,000. So normally what we'll use this one for is for mutual aids and areas without fire hydrants. ESD2 has 4 of these, I believe. And so we use them. Well, they have in the back, they have a big drop tank. We call it a pumpkin sometimes, but it's a big pool. You'll pull up, you'll dump your tank, you'll dump your 2,000 gallons of water, you'll take off to the hydrant, you go get 2,000 gallons more, and you bring it back, and then the engine will tie into that tank and will suck out of that tank, and we just keep it full. And so a rotation of 5 of these can keep that thing going for quite a bit. The fireworks manufacturing a couple years ago, they had I think like 4 or 5 tanks down on the ground, and they had an aerial device up flowing 2,000 GPMs of water, and they just kept those just every truck just in a rotation. And so it's highly important that we have this for mutual aid to go assist ESD2, plus our wildland. We will tie into this when we do wildland because our brush trucks carry less water, 300 gallons. And so it's just important. And then we never know when you may have an issue with a fire hydrant. Even though we have them, you never know if it's one you can't get open or whatever it may be. And so it's good to have the large amounts of water. It's 11 years old. Its expected replacement is 15 years. And again, it just goes to and from fires with hydrants are inadequate. And then fire suppression abilities, if needed, it can be transitioned into an engine. It has the same capabilities, same pump, has the same hoses. It's just a little bit, it's just used more in the tender side. This truck was purchased in 2016. It was originally owned by the ESD, by ESD number 2. We purchased it from them in 2016 to become a part of our fleet. And so because we were sending it out to their calls and we were using it a whole lot, and he had an extra one, so we purchased it from him. Rescue 22 is a 2003 International. It's basically the second engine, just without a pump. It's just got a utility bed on the back. It has no water, no pump. It's 16 years old. Its expected replacement is 20 years, and the reason it's extended out is because it doesn't have a pump, and it doesn't have water. So without water and without a pump, the weight on it is way less, and so it has less wear and tear on the vehicle. This one you can get somewhere pretty quick. The guys love driving this truck. Its purpose is strictly just rescue tools. It has a lot of our specialized equipment that we saw. It's got some hazmat stuff, some high angle rescue, all of our stuff that can't fit on the other apparatus we will put in here. The rescue tools you see down there in the bottom corner are currently on that truck. They're just an older set. It's kind of our backup set. Our main set is on our first engine that you saw, because it's the first out engine, and this is kind of the second out. Should we have another wreck at the same time, or should something happen to the first set? These are the backups. So, Brush 16 is down at Station 1 downtown. It's a 2004 Ford F450. It's got 300 gallons of water. Its age is 15 years. Its expected replacement will be should be this year, 15 years. It's got its bed and its pump were replaced in 2017. The Hidden Pines fire in 2015. This truck was sent out there as a part of a task force to the Hidden Pines to work. While it was at Hidden Pines, the engine had some failure, and it actually caused a catastrophic failure to the engine and onto the pump. And so the pump was out of service. And so in 2017, the city manager funded the replacement of the bed and the pump. So it has a new bed and new pump on it. And so the chassis underneath is what technically needs to be replaced. So we could remount that bed, that pump that's pretty much brand new. We could remount it on a new truck and still instead of spending $100,000 on a whole setup, we could spend $25,000 on a new truck and just have it remounted. So, but its purpose is strictly for wildland and grass fires. A median fire, it works great. Getting through Tahitian through the small trees, we can take it off road. It's 4-wheel drive. We also use it for trash fires. It can be used for a lot of things. So, Brush 26 is a 2007 Ford F450. It's 400 gallons. It's got age of 12 years. It's be expected to replace in 15 years. It's got a few more years left in it. It currently has a rear main seal leak. We're waiting for the seal to come in. As soon as it does, we're going to take it to the shop, have the rear main seal replaced on it. We just had the transmission seal to the transfer case replaced. We thought the oil was leaking really bad. It ended up being the transmission, and so we're going to get both of them replaced. Once we get those two replaced this year, that truck shouldn't have any other issues. We'll just keep up the preventive maintenance on it and just keep going with it. And it'll make its 15 years. It was a grant truck that was given back in, I think in 2007, 2008, correct? It was a TFS grant vehicle, and it's still being used. So, Command 10. This is my vehicle. It's a 2016 Command vehicle. It's 3 years old. It's expected to be replaced in 7 years. The reason it's lower is these get all the miles. So this is the one that's going around town doing all the inspections. I take it to and from City Hall to the station. I try to go on all the EMS calls. I go to all the fire calls, and so it racks up. It's probably got, I think right now, about 45,000 miles on it. So it get used quite a bit. In the back, we have it's set up for command, and so when we get on scene, we establish command. We have a whiteboards, and we can keep track of accountability. We do everything from the back of that truck. It's got radios. It's got the whole thing. Everything gets done from the back of that truck. It has some limited fire suppression ability. It's got fire extinguishers, water cans, and so if I get there first, which 99% of the time I do, I have I can be some assistance. We have a second vehicle, Command 20. This is given to the assistant chief. It's a 2008 Ford F-250. Its current age is 11 years. It should have been replaced at 7 years. It had something changed a few years ago. Yeah, the fuel system was done to it, which is quite a bit of money to get the fuel system changed. I think it was in like the $10,000 range. And so we made a decision to go ahead and keep it and prolong it and get the money out of the $10,000. So when we do our plan, it'll be part of the replacement. Utility 62. It's a 2010 Chevy Tahoe. It's a utility personnel transport. Currently, our fire inspector uses this to go and do fire inspections. It stays down at the station. But mainly it's used to go to training. The guys will pile in and take off and go to College Station with. If we have a call that just requires manpower out in the ESD, instead of taking one of our trucks, they'll take this. And so it's just a transport vehicle. It does carry a whole bunch of cones in the back as well, so if we need more cones, we'll bring that out. Its expected replacement is 10 years, so next year. The trick with this one was it was a patrol unit in the PD. It was purchased in 2010. It was a patrol unit. It was given to us in 2016, so it's got a lot of hard patrol hours and miles. I think it's in its 150,000.
As they say, it's had a hard life and hard living. Rode hard and put up wet. The Popo had it.
Yes, very. And it's like 164,000 miles right now. So it's at a 2010. So it needs its replacement, but it's seen its useful life.
And I don't want to be tacky. If there was life in it, the police department wouldn't have given it to the fire department.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. But it runs. It just a little maintenance here and there, but it's a good vehicle. Boat 10. Boat 10 is a 2015 Inmar. Its age is 4. Its expected replacement will be 10 years. Water search rescue. It's a inflatable boat. We use it on the river. We'll use it in swift water. We'll take the motor off and walk if we have to, and it'll float across, and we'll load people in and then bring them back out. So it can be used like a canoe type deal. But it's down at Station 1. It stays down there. Boat 20 is a smaller version. The other one's 15 foot. This is a 12-foot inflatable. Its age is 9 years. Its expected replacement is 10 years, and the reason the 10 years is the manufacturer recommends a replacement after 10 years because they can't guarantee after 10 years that the glue in the seams won't fail. And so because it's out in the sun, it's in the bay, it gets hot, it gets cold, it's like a tire basically. It inflates and deflates as the weather changes, and so they can't guarantee those seals, so they recommend every 10 years you replace them. Even if you don't have holes in it, they would recommend. So, and actually, this one was used last Sunday on a water rescue, and on the river. It was used. Had a swimmer that had some issues, went down, and they had to go across the river, bring them back across. So they get their work. So let's talk about NFPA 1710. This is 1710 is the apparatus requirements. In NFPA 1710 is the standard for the organization and deployment of fire suppression operations, emergency medical operations, and special operations to the public by career fire departments. So this is what we're regulated by to provide those services and how we provide those services. Within that standard is the structured fire in a typical 2,000 square foot home with a 2-story single-family dwelling. The initial engine company, that's just one fire truck, is to arrive within a 240-second travel time. That's 4 minutes. So initial one truck with a crew is supposed to arrive within 4 minutes. That's the standard nationwide. Our average right now is about 6 minutes on that first engine getting there. The remaining response, and we'll go over and I'll show you what a full alarm response looks like. The remaining response is supposed to be within, with the other 90%, within 480 seconds. That's 8 minutes. Our average right now is about 19 to 21. And I'll go over what that average and why it's so spread out. So we'll kind of go over that.
Chief, real quick.
Yes.
Those response times, does that include like big city fire departments as well as?
Yeah, there's no differentiation between a city size. They're standard.
This study was conducted, and the response times are intended to minimize the amount of damage to the property. So whether it's large or small, this is calculated on given the materials that you typically find in a house, how quickly they will accelerate, and how quickly the fire department has to be there to minimize the damage to the property.
Yeah, property conservation and life safety, the two. So NFPA 1710, a first alarm. So this is what a first alarm should look like. If we have a call, just like I said, a 200 square foot home, 2-story single dwelling, this is what a normal first alarm would look like. It's 15 personnel required. It's 17 personnel required if we have a ladder truck. But the total on scene should be 1 command vehicle, which would be 1 chief officer, 1 ladder truck with 1 officer, 3 firefighters, engine with 1 officer, 3 firefighters, another engine with 1 officer, 3 firefighters, another engine with 1 officer and 3 firefighters. And then they give certain assignments. So you have to assign certain people to certain tasks within that grouping. And so this is a typical alarm within any fire department, what they should get. And again, with the 4 minutes and the 8 minutes. So your attack pumper here on the first one would be your initial alarm, the 4 minutes. So he would have that single engine would need to arrive within the 4 minutes. The remaining rest of them would have to arrive within the 8 minutes. Or at least 90% of them would have to arrive within the 8 minutes. So that would include your ladder, your other 2 engines, and your chief. Any questions about this one? Okay. So again, apparatus requirements is that in Section 5, or Chapter 5, Section 2 talks about the suppression capabilities. It goes into 4 minutes, the 8 minutes. And so we'll talk about a ladder truck. So currently, we don't have one. In order for us to get a ladder truck, it would come from those 3 agencies: the Austin Fire Department, which is Station 42, which is over there by the airport. It's 23.3 miles, give or take, depending on traffic. So you're talking 30 minutes, 35 minutes, depending on. Travis County ESD 11, which is down in Elroy by Dakota. They have a Quint, and it's 23.7 miles from us. Giddings Volunteer Fire Department has a ladder truck. It's not a Quint. Quint means it doesn't have a pump on it. It's just a ladder truck, and it's 26.3 miles. So let's kind of look at that. So Elroy,
Chief,
yes, sir.
what good does it do if it just has a ladder on it?
So there's a lot of different. Different philosophies on that. It just depends. There's what we call sticks, where it's just the ladder. There's a platform that's got the bucket on the front. There's quints. And so the difference is whether or not it can self-sustain itself, or you would have to tie another engine. So if just a ladder truck with no pump, an engine would have to supply it in order to get it to shoot water. Versus it could supply itself, and all you have to do is tie to a hydrant. And so it's supplying itself versus having to tie up another piece of apparatus. Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah. So not just so its main purpose would be used for victim rescue. Would be its primary purpose, and then its secondary purpose would be to put the master stream reach out.
But if we were buying something, wouldn't we want to go for a double duty? I mean, a ladder with
He's going to plead a case here as to why we have to have it, and Councilmember Peterson is right. We are now in time when we have multi-story buildings, and we don't have ladders that reach beyond second stories, and so we're now to a place where an aerial ladder is critical. And he has a great slide because it has a lot of other capabilities that help us bridge some of our challenges.
Great, thanks.
So just a little map showing kind of those different areas. We all kind of know where Giddings. Wanted to also indicate where ESD 2, when we call for mutual aid, ESD Station 3, Station 4, and then also ESD 1 is over here, and then Elgin Fire. So those are some of our response. But the main thing is the 2 ladder trucks from Austin Fire, Travis County, and Giddings. So again, the first alarm. So if we throw in the aerial right now, we're looking at to get that complete first alarm, we're looking at a 40-minute plus or minus, and that is if they're available. So if I call Austin and say, can you send me a ladder truck, they may say, well, sorry, engine 40 or Quint 42 is on a call. You're going to have to get Quint whatever from somewhere else. And so they're going to send us whatever is available to us. Same with Elroy. They may say, well, I'm sorry, we're on another call. They're not available. Or Giddings, they may say we're not available. And so that is if we're available. To get that first alarm with the ladder is about 40 minutes.
What's left of the structure in 40 minutes?
Probably not a lot, and that's what I was about to say. In the 1980s, the materials with which your furniture and furnishings changed significantly. Prior to the 80s, they were cotton, they were more natural fibers, and it literally would take 10 to 15 minutes for a fire to escalate. Now it takes seconds. Literally, a fire can double in size in 45 seconds. And you can have a fully involved structure where there's no turning back in 5 to 7 minutes. So the mayor's question in that context, at 40 minutes, it's gone. Our concern is in 40 minutes, we're going to have lost that, and what else? That's right, because if the wind's blowing, or depending on the proximity of the structures around it, in 40 minutes, he's out of resources, and there's nothing we can do but watch it. So that's the point of this, is not to cause alarm, but we're to a place that as we grow, we're going to have to begin to expand the capabilities that we have closer.
Absolutely, and we do currently have facilities. Hampton Inn, for example, is a four-story multi dwelling building with multiple people inside of it. And so if we had something high up, currently our tallest ladder is 75 foot or less than that, and so we're not going to go up very far. And so we'd have to wait for that that ladder truck to get here, or the Quint to get here. So, any questions? Yes, sir.
City manager said as we continue to grow, we're going to, sounds to me like we already need all of this.
Yes, sir, but
we
it's
just need you to
commensurate.
write a check to the city of Bastrop, and we will get all this
Let me
stuff
check my
ordered.
bank balance.
There you go.
We take donations, yes.
So the point of that is yes, we need it today, but we all know that our money doesn't make this work. So part of what we have to do is put together a multi-year plan, and I think the chief is going to make a great case for why an aerial ladder is important, not only for fire suppression, but it has rescue capabilities, and that's something we don't have that I would argue we need. It was on my priority list when I got here, and we're now to a place where its time has come, and I don't think we can ignore it anymore. So when he gets there, we'll make that case for you.
But aren't a lot of the hotel is set up to fight fires, right? It's got an internal water system.
Absolutely.
Those multi-story buildings.
Well, so in the case of our international fire codes, yes, there's standpipes and yes, there's sprinkler systems, but Murphy happens every day. You hope they work. If they're not inspected, which is why we have to do fire inspection, because we have to hold them accountable. So from a fire perspective, hopefully we could manage that. But what if that building got hit by a tornado and we had to do some rescue? We don't have that ladder capability. So yes, fire is always important, but when you got a multi-story building, we have to have the ability to rescue those folks as well. But again, we have a slide. We'll get to it.
Yes. And also, while we're speaking of aerials, ISO, the insurance rating is highly dependent on an aerial device, and the location of your aerial device is part of your ISO rating to get your rating lower. So, to get your rating lower. So to go to a 2 or a 1, you would have to have an aerial device included in your rating. So talk about, again, with the first alarm, the requirements for staffing. So requires a minimum of 17 people in 8 minutes. So let's talk about what our department. Bastrop Fire, from 7A to 7P, our staffing levels are Engine 11, which is what our day crew is currently on, is 3 persons. And then Command 10, which is myself with 1 person. And we have an average response of about 6 minutes. The average number of personnel is 4.46 during the day, and that includes volunteers. So if we get a structure fire, there's only going to be 4 point. It's on average right now, 2018 statistics. Oh, we're not sending the half. Yes, absolutely. That's an average. Sorry. So we'll go with 4. So 4 personnel on an average. The reason for the response time is got to do with station locations. So currently we have Tahitian Station and we have the downtown station. Well, Tahitian is the station we're housing our personnel now because of the facilities. We are looking at being able to move those facilities and redo Station 1 downtown, and so that we can move them closer to town and kind of hopefully get that first initial response down. But that still doesn't include anything around Hunter's Crossing. That still is a little distance from us here, and so station placement is huge in this. So let's talk about nighttime, because that's 7A to 7P. Let's talk about 7P to 7A with our volunteers only, because at night we go straight volunteer. Our average response is 9.6 minutes, and we have an average personnel of 3. So we average 3 people on every call that we go on. And so out of the 20, we're guaranteed that we're going to get 3 of them. So, and it ranges. Sometimes it's good and we got 19. Sometimes it's good and we may have 1. Sometimes it's good and it's just myself. And that's me getting up at night and coming into town and coming in and running that call by myself. And it may be something just as easy as a fire alarm, and it could be something as easy as a structure fire. It could be something it just depends. And it has to do with the moon lining up correctly, and you know, because people have lives outside. You know, some of them have to be at work at 7 a.m. Some of them have to be at work at 8 a.m. And so if that call comes in at 5 a.m. and most of them say, I got to be at work in an hour or so. And so they tend to not come in during that time. And so we have, and I'll talk about our times and when we have these people and the differences. So we heavily, because of these numbers, we heavily rely on our surrounding agencies. Our mutual aid is highly important to us. Our number one mutual aid department is ESD number 2, and that is because we train with them. We were joined at the hip at one time before we did a split in 2015. Myself and Chief Gill, we get along very well. I was over there, so we have a lot of the same ideas. And so we train every Thursday, every third and fourth Thursday, we train together. We bring our groups together, we train together, we perform together, and we know our equipment together, and so we work very cohesive. HOP Fire, which is our neighbor to the east.
Heart of Pines.
I'm sorry, Heart of Pines. My apologies. Heart of Pines is our neighbor to the east. Smithville is the next neighbor to the east. ESD1 is our neighbor to the west, and then Elgin Fire is our neighbor to the north. And at any time, you know, we just tell dispatch, send me an engine from Elgin, send me an engine from ESD1, send me an engine from whatever agency, and when the toner comes off, they're coming, and we'll reciprocate to them the same. It works very well, but again, all those departments have the same staffing issues that we do. They're all volunteer. Heart of Pines is 100% volunteer. Smithville is 100% volunteer. ESD1 has staffing 24 hours. They only staff 2-person, 24 hours. ESD2 has the same staffing we do. They staff 12 hours a day, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So he has the same staffing issues with the volunteers at night that we do. He has, though, during the day, he has 2 stations with 2 persons. So he staffs both stations, so he has 4 people on duty and plus himself. And then Elgin Fire has 100% during the day. They're volunteer. What they do have, though, they have a large number of city employees in their public works department and other departments that respond to the fires during the day, and I'm not sure how that works out, but they do have that. Trey, Trey's already. So average number of responding personnel. This goes back to what we were talking about just a second ago. So from 7 o'clock in the morning to 1900 hours, which is 7 p.m. So from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. In 2017, we had an average of 4.48, or average of 4 throughout the last 3 years. So in 2017, 2018, and 2019, year to date, our average during the day is 4 people. Our average response times kind of go from roughly 7 to about 6 minutes average all 3 years. And then you see our nighttime, where we go back to volunteers, from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. at night. Our average is 5, and you see it's progressively gotten lower throughout the years. And then our response times, those kind of gotten lower too. And those could be 2 things, kind of deceiving. One thing could be is that during the higher number of staffing, they were waiting for an additional person to come to the scene. So they had a higher response time where they're waiting for their guy. If somebody's coming from Hunter's Crossing going to Station 1 and the other guy lives here next door at Station 1, he's going to wait for his buddy to come before they go. So it's going to extend the response time. versus now where they are not waiting as long for somebody because they didn't answer up. They're going to have a quicker response. They're going to get there faster. So those averages kind of move around a little bit. So as we talk about the number of average personnel going down, there's a trend in the volunteers just nationwide. It's not just in Texas. It's not just here. Nationwide, the volunteer fire departments are kind of having staffing issues. And I think they don't know if it's a generational thing, if it's just the volunteerism is going away. It's certainly not funding. We incentivize them to come. We give them a stipend. We train them. We do all kinds of stuff. Currently there is a House bill, House Bill 2348, that is a job protection bill. And what this is a volunteer that would respond to a disaster, a declared disaster, lost his job because he went to the fire or he went to the Hurricane Harvey or he did something and couldn't go to his job the next day and lost his job. And so he's got some backing now from different groups, and they're fighting to put this in. And so it's basically the House bill to respond to declared emergencies without fear of losing their job. And so it's going to be set there that you can't fire them but it has to be a declared emergency. It can't be just an average everyday type fire. Some of the other things is incentivizing them with. We currently have some House bills on doing tuition reimbursement for volunteers, and so there's lots of things that different states are doing, but it's a trend. It's dropping off, and volunteers are just not there anymore.
Do we need to take a bio break? We've been at this probably about an hour and a half.
Sure.
Okay, so it is 7:56 and we're in recess. We'll take about a 5-minute break.
On the first item,
Yes, but it is intentionally long. The others are quick.
thank you.
I think you've already sold us.
Well, I got 4 slides left on the first item, and then we'll kick it over.
You're doing great, and it's great information. I'm just trying to mentally prepare myself. So.
Quick question, Chief.
Yes, sir.
When our volunteers go for CEUs or trying to get, do we incur the cost or do they incur the cost on themselves?
No, we incur the costs. We provide their transportation. We pay for their meals. We give them the same as the city staff, where they get stipends and per diem. I'm sorry, there it is, per diem. So let's talk about our current average response times. In the box here, I put from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. there. You can see they're pretty consistent with the averages there. The ones in the red are where we're concerned. Our times there at 3 a.m. to 4 a.m., they're about 14-minute average. From 4 a.m. to 5 a.m. is about 11-minute average, and from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. is about a 10-minute average, and then you see down here midnight was about a 12-hour. So that 3 a.m.
12-minute. You said 12-hour.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. Sorry. But our 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. are our biggest concerns, and that is usually when people are, I got to get my rest for tomorrow. I've got to go to work tomorrow. I can't come in, and so those are our priority hours that we would say. But we average, like I said, this average over here, and then the average response time is about 6 minutes from 7 and then from 7 to 7 is about 9. But if you total all those up, it gets about an average of 7.65 minutes. So to get just the basic there. But again, those 3 a.m. to 7 and then from 11 to midnight.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you have one of your paid responders, like from 7 to 7, let's say you get called out at 6, do they stay on until it's done, or at 6 o'clock,
So, yeah.
7 o'clock, I'm leaving and...
Yes. So if we get a call, so they were required to keep their gear until 7. So usually we pay them a little bit over because they got to put their stuff up. But they have to be at the station until 7. So if we pop a call, we're out at 7, and sometimes even some of them are good that they 7:15 they're going out on the call, and I'll pay them for it, and I'll compensate them for staying over. But absolutely, and if we have a call and we stay over, they get compensated for that, for those three guys. But we do supplement with the volunteers, and a lot of times the volunteers will come up during that time because normally they're getting off work and now they're coming in and they're hanging out. So, but they do absolutely, they stay, and they're required to be there till 7 p.m.
But I mean, but let's say they're on the call. I know we're going to pay them. I wasn't questioning whether you're going to pay them or not. I was just making sure that they will stay until.
Yeah, they're not going to. Yeah, they're not going to walk off from a call. They've got to. They're going to take that call for us.
Okay.
So absolutely. And the same within the morning. A lot of them, that 6:30ish. When they get there, they're starting the trucks. They're doing their stuff. They usually, if we get a call in that time frame, they'll go. And also from 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. the ESD is covering, or the ESD has their crew, and a lot of times they may come and help supplement us if the volunteers haven't quite answered up, and they kind of help us with that response, and then we'll reciprocate that from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. So because their guys leave at 6 p.m.
So it's like we talked about the proclamation last night. It's a family. You
It is.
take care of each
Absolutely.
other. That's the bottom line.
Absolutely. So our 2018 call statistics, as you see here, these are our Monday through Friday. You got Sunday is 89 calls, and this is a total of 759 calls for 2018. And so 89 of them were on Sunday, 98 of them on Monday, all the way over to Saturday. But our biggest one is Friday. And usually that's the Friday travel home, our car wrecks, our holiday weekends, stuff like that. Tuesdays, I'm not sure. That was an anomaly. I have no idea what Tuesdays
We decided Sunday they're resting, Monday they're tired, Tuesday they've geared up.
Absolutely, yeah. So, but pretty consistent. Rest of the days, Sundays are usually pretty quiet. So, incidents by hours, as you can see there, our call times, we're hitting them pretty well with our day crew. The box there is the day crew from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can see the majority of our calls are during that time. The other hours are when our volunteers, and you can see those are some lower numbers. And so our day crew right now, we've got them on a good time, that's 7 a to 7 p. And so they're getting the majority of our calls. Hopefully that doesn't shift on us. You can see that the later it goes, the 25, 28, but we're covering pretty well right now.
And back to the beginning of your presentation, a call is a call.
A call is a call.
It could be an assist.
Absolutely.
A call is a call.
Absolutely. A call is a call. If somebody calls 911 for a fire, we're going. So NFPA 1710, the staffing. So we talked about the total personnel without a ladder, the total is 17 with a ladder, and then we got to have them all there within 8 minutes. So currently those 3 part-time guys are 7A to 7P, 1 full-timer. And I'm technically here from 8 to 5, but I'm always here. I come in early, I leave. So yeah, that's a lie. So, but volunteer covers the nights and the additional staffing. So just because we have the 7A to 7P during the day, those guys, the volunteers, they supplement during the day. If we call, we tone out and we say we need people to come. The volunteer or the paid staff may go and assist ESD2, and we'll tone out and have the volunteers come in, and then they'll supplement us on an additional call. We have several overlapping calls where even though we're on a call, we'll get 2 or 3 more calls or at the same time. So it's important that we use them. So again, we heavily rely on the ESD2. They're a huge mutual aid partner with us. Yesterday we had a structure fire down in Tahitian. We assisted them. We were first on scene. It was their district, their call, but we were first on scene, and we made a huge save on a 2-story structure. We got there within 3 minutes, I think, 3 to 4 minutes, and we saved the whole house. And so they had very little damage done just into the garage. So had that extended time, or had it had just a difference, we could have lost the whole house. So, but again, we're going to prepare a plan for staffing for the budget. We don't have the plan yet. We're working on that. I'm working with the city manager and the public safety director. We're going to get a plan for you. We're going to come together with that. But part of that plan is going to be some thinking outside the box. And some of that thinking outside the box is we're talking with the police department and supplementing us on the night shift with maybe some officers that are cross-trained with fire, and maybe they go get the apparatus for us, or maybe they're doing that initial rescue, or they're doing something in a part of it to augment us while we're working on our long-term solution. This is not this is a short-term solution, but we've got to work towards a long-term, but hopefully they can help staff us. Yes, sir.
You said we have to do this within 8 minutes, or I thought that's what isn't our goal to do it 4 and 6?
Yeah, so we need the initial truck to get there with 8 minutes, but we need that total of 17 there within 8 minutes. So we need the initial truck with one truck there within 4 minutes, and then the rest of them to show up within 8 minutes.
But ideally, you'd say get them there by 6 minutes.
Oh, I'd love the whole crew to get there by 6. Yeah, I get everybody there. If I get everybody there within that first 4 to 8 minutes, we're golden. We're gonna make a save like we did yesterday.
He'd love to know that he reliably has 17 people he can count on.
Absolutely.
That would be a first step.
Absolutely.
I was just trying to get all the minutes.
Absolutely. So, thinking outside the box, that's some of the things we're looking at with this staffing plan, and so we'll bring that forward, and we'll bring you a plan later in the year, or later towards the budget. I'm sorry. Apparatus needs. So we kind of talked about this at the beginning. So we're looking at engine 11, even though it's 6 years old, that reliability, it's going to need some replacement. Engine 21, it's got the years. Command 20, it's got its years, and brush 16 is that cab replacement. And so, an engine down here on the bottom, and then there's your Quint up there, your ladder truck, and that's actually a Quint with a platform. That's the platform there, the bucket on the end. But we're gonna prepare an apparatus replacement plan for you as a part of the budget. We're gonna present that and bring that to you, and we'll determine which one of these are gonna be priority and how we're gonna stagger that. And so we'll work with the city manager on that.
Just to provide a scope of magnitude, we're talking about probably $2 million worth of equipment to get a Quint with all the gear on it. And this figure is probably 3 years old. It's probably $1.1 million. And you can't buy it without the equipment. What's the point? To replace one of the engines, it's $750,000. So part of what we'll be looking at is how to structure this and put it in the equipment replacement plan. So the great thing is if you buy them right, they really do have 10 years of frontline life, and then 5 years in reserve. So we're making a 15-year investment. And so one of the things that I have encouraged the chief to do is what change might we see in the next 15 years? So we're not buying for today, we're buying for tomorrow. And that's part of what we've got to start working towards. So these are not going to be small investments, but it's life safety. And so we'll be putting together a multi-year plan. The thing about a fire truck is that once you get it designed, it takes a year to build. So it's not unusual for departments to finance it on a lease purchase over 10 years, and you pay it on the back end, not the front end. So instead of making the payment at the beginning of the year, you make it at the end of the year, so that we're actually paying for the engine when we've got it instead of paying for it while we're waiting for it to be built. So what we may make the decision to do is to go ahead and authorize the purchase next year, knowing we won't pay for it until 2021. So that's why I'm saying we're going to bring you a multi-year plan with some financing mechanisms in it. So because anything we do with the fire truck, it's not going to happen this year. It's a 12 to 14 month event, even when you're committed. So it's a big deal. I really appreciate the work that the chief has done with his team, but we're making big investments. And part of the reason for tonight, this is a very detailed process, but you have to understand all of the intricacies of what they do to appreciate what each piece of equipment does. And if we're going to make a $2 million investment, we need to be sure it's right, particularly since we're going to live with it for a long time. So hence the reason that he got the biggest piece of the agenda tonight to do that.
I had a break, but we already went to that. But Mayor, that was 2A, and I'm ready to move to 2B.
Okay, but you can't do that until we tell you that you did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Really, really great
Thank
information.
Now you can
Thank
feel
you,
free to move
2B.
on. So we're, item 2B, discuss fire equipment needs for fiscal year 2020.
So, yes, ma'am. So our equipment needs, so again, with our NFPA, our equipment is governed by NFPA. It has its standards. So NFPA 1971 is our standard on our protective gear. They call it an ensemble, but it's our structured gear. NFPA 1981 is our standard on our SCBAs, which are self-containing breathing apparatus. 1975 is the standard on work apparel, which is what our guys wear when they're on duty, on shift. And then 1977 is a standard on wildland. So we have a different gear for each one of the purposes. Yes, sir.
Those represent years?
I would assume, no, I don't think so. I think in the NFPA, they just go down categorized.
It's 1,977, whatever.
Yeah, I don't think it actually has a year. Yeah. What they'll do is say NFPA 1971, 2016 version.
Okay.
So you have a year version that references that.
Okay, great, thanks.
Some of them go back to 2010. I think any of them further back than 10, but then they'll move up. I think SCBA's 1981 standard is now in 2019, and I'll talk about that standard here in a minute, but they moved it to 2019. And some of the other ones, they just kind of move around when they evaluate them.
I just didn't want anybody who might be watching from home thinking we're living from the standards of 1975.
That's a good point. Yeah, and absolutely not. No, those are just the numbers that they pick. Yep. So our protective gear, let's talk about it. And I brought examples.
Yeah, bring a model up. Let's see some goodies.
We brought examples for you to see, and we'll talk about. As you see the firemen up here, just the helmet up there is about $350. The Nomex hood.
No, we want you to put them on.
Come on. Oh, it's my gear, so we'll have to. So we'll talk about the helmet by itself. Here is $350. It's the Nomex hood he's got there in his hand. It's what you put on over, you have your mask. Mask goes on your face, and then your Nomex hood will go over it, and that's to protect your ears and your face, the parts that aren't covered by the mask. And so it's $150. They have, these are particulate hoods they've moved to, and they used to be cheaper. They're now more expensive because the particulate hood is supposed to keep some of the particles from getting cancer-related stuff. So to keep it from getting absorbed into your skin. Then you have the coat. This is a brand new coat. I actually got it 2 days ago. It's brand new. I've been borrowing ESD2s while we're waiting for the for the gear to come in. It's got several layers in there. They run about $1,000 a piece for the coat. Just the coat by itself, about $1,000.
It's just
they're
his
running
life.
into a burning building.
Yeah.
So-
How much does it weigh?
It doesn't weigh. You could
No. Just it's a couple pounds.
couple pounds, yeah.
The coats don't really weigh much, they're just really light.
That's good.
The more heavy stuff is our silk-free.
It's when you get it all together.
Yeah, I'm assuming you'll eventually say
it's
fully
it's about 70 pounds when they get
when they're
loaded up.
decked out. Okay.
So you got the coat, and it has multiple layers, so it's not just an exterior. You have the exterior coat that keeps the moisture out, the water out. Then you have an interior layer, and this is the thermal layer between you. And so this is the more layers you have, the more air between them, the less, the longer, the more heat it takes. So the pants are the same here. You got the pants; they're about $900 a piece. So it has the same layers, same thing, same in between. Just a couple pockets here and there.
And I think you told us, but how long is the coat good for?
Okay, so the two of them, NFPA says 10 years.
10 years. Okay.
Yep. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a second. The gloves over here are special gloves. They're about $70 a piece. They got multiple layers, the same thing, multiple layers. They got some gel in them. And they're to keep the heat away from your hands. And then you got your flashlight about 125, and then your boots are about 325 right here. Special, they got steel all the way up on the bottom, so you step on nails, and then they're heat resistant for crawling around and stuff like that. But the whole ensemble, all the way through, is about $2,920 for one firefighter. That's just one guy. That's just the clothes. That's none of the other stuff. So we'll talk.
They can't go in the fire yet. They can
Yeah,
just
no, we haven't even got to the fire yet. So that's just us standing on the outside of the house. So the radio there, they're about $5,000 a piece. They're about $5,000 a piece. We issue one to every person that's going to go interior to the house. This is one of our new ones. They're important for us. We communicate with them. We check status on them. If they need a mayday, they need something interior, we know where they're at, and we can locate them. The pager is about $450 a person, and those are what the volunteers carry. That's how they get notified that we have a call. So dispatch will send out a special tone. The pager goes off. Then they tell us, Bastrop Fire, you have a call and the location and what it is. And then that's how we know that we need to go to the station.
So when you've said tone out, that's what you mean?
Tone out. Yep, this is a tone out. Yes.
So do you have different tones for different things, so they know whether it's...
No, so it's one tone, one tone per department. So each department has a different tone throughout the county. And some, like ESD1 has station tones for each department, or for each different station. But we have one tone here. We do have used to use the task force tones, but mainly here just one tone. What the difference is the way that dispatch tells us. Basically, they're going to tell us it's what the call type is. Is it a structure fire? Is it a vehicle fire? What the call is. And then we also supplement that with a program on our phone called Active 911. What it does is from dispatch, it's shortly a couple seconds off, but when the tone goes off on the pager, you'll get an alert on your phone, and then it tells you the call type, what it is, and then you can read some of the notes from dispatch. And so it's very helpful. That helps us with also, they click en route, and so that we know, I can glance at the phone and I can see how many people are coming, what I can expect to get to the station. And that'll give me an idea of, do I need mutual aid? Do I only have one of me going? Do I only have two? Do I have three? And so that helps very much.
Why wouldn't you just use your phone anyway?
So the reason we don't use the phones is they're not reliable because cell service, there's no guarantee that call, sometimes it's 2 minutes, sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes you're in your house and you don't get service. So if you don't get service, it doesn't come. Whereas this is a radio tower that we house right outside here on Mayfest, or not, sorry, Mayfest, behind the cemetery. We own it, and we can send it out, and it's guaranteed.
The city of Austin still carries, every city employee that's in a response capability still carries their own pager for that very reason, so that if the cell towers ever go down, they have the pager system, and so they're able to. So it's a redundancy issue, and it turns out that the pager is actually more reliable than what the cell phone is.
It's like a landline.
Yep.
It's essentially. Sometimes the old ways were not always bad ways, and they're reliable.
Yep.
But it's utilizing the robust LCRA radio system.
It's
correct?
the Gators. Actually, no, this is not a part of the Gator system. So this is a VHF system, VHF system that is. It's only us. It's our own frequency. We own it. It's on that tower. It's our repeater we own. There's a FireNet North repeater, there's a FireNet South repeater, and then there's one in Smithville. And so each one of those, and then we own the central one. We own the one in the middle. The ESD2 shares it. The Heart of Pines shares it with us. We allow them to get the same tones off of it, but it's ours. So it's kind of also our backup. So if the Gators system, which is the Austin regional system, if it goes down, this is our backup. We would go to this, and it's more reliable than our 800 system. But so total, just on this page here, per firefighter is $8,370 to outfit one firefighter. So that's one volunteer. Okay.
That's with the breathing apparatus and
No,
everything?
so that's not including the breathing apparatus. So on this page, that's not including the tool he has in his hand, the thermal imaging camera, and the SCBA. That doesn't include those three items. This is just his, just what he's wearing. Yep. Got a radio and he got the call. Yep. And those figures.
The radio, the call, the pager, and he's hoping to see some friends.
Yeah, and those figures for what I just purchased, what I just received over the last month. But those they range they go up to $5,000. It just depends on the year and what manufacturer you're buying from, and then if the materials are available. And so that goes up and down. So talk about the other gear they have. Personal protective gear. They have wildland. We issue them wildland equipment. We have some here. This pack here is what we issue to every single firefighter. On the bottom here, this square box is it's called the shelter, the fire shelter. Everyone's required to carry it. You open it up, and there's your got a very special way of opening it. There's your foil in there. So everybody's issued one of those, as well as the pack, so they can carry bottles of water, because basically you're hiking in. So you're going to hike in, and you don't know how long you're going to be there. And so you take the majority of what you can, toilet paper, you take the essentials with you. And then we'll relieve you as some of the other stuff they're issued is, they get a regular helmet. We issue them wildland gear. There's similar to what you see up there. It's this, but we issue them Tech Gen. Is what this is called. It's multi-purpose. This is used for vehicle extrications as well as wildland. So we get 2 purchases out of 1 with it. The other thing is this is about it's about $400 for the coat and $400 for the set of pants. We used to use our bunker gear. The other gear here, we used to use it for vehicle extrications. And so what you would do is you got glass or you got something, you would cut your gear. Well, the minute you cut your gear, it's required to it's out of service and it's got to go get repaired. So the repairs were higher. So what we did is we transitioned to these for vehicle extrication. I'd rather replace this at $400 than replace that at $1,000 or $900. So that's why we do this. And then plus it gets us the wildland requirements that we're meeting. But we do issue, like the gentleman here is wearing just regular, they have some wildland pants that are fire rated, and they have a wildland shirt that's fire rated. Some of the guys, if we have a long-term, like Hidden Pines or the Complex or something that's long-term, the guys will transition to that. It's lighter. It's not as thick as the Tech Gen is, and so they'll transition to that. And you'll see them in the yellows, we call them the yellows and the greens. They'll transition to that. Those are way cheaper than the other ones. But total just wildland by itself is about $19.29. The boots that they wear will also work with the extrication and then the station wear. So we buy them 1 set of boots, and they work with everything except for the bunker gear. So station wear uniforms. NFPA says they got to wear specific fire rated uniforms. Right now we're kind of in a middle phase with that. We're not issuing them because it is costly. It's about $800 for 1 person because it's FR, it's fire rated. It's instead of them wearing polyester, like he's wearing a polyester shirt. So instead of wearing a polyester shirt underneath your structure gear, and then when you go in and it melts to you because you get in high temperatures, it melts and then it'll cause burns and stuff. They are requiring us to wear fire rated uniforms. And so those uniforms, you got to issue 2 or 3 of them, and so they get upwards of $800. But the shirts are about $100 range, and the pants are usually about $150, $200, depending on what brand you go with. They used to allow you to lease these, and they've kind of gotten most companies don't lease them anymore because there's so much regulations and so much upkeep you have to do with them, and so it's been hard for us to find a company that will. Like Trey leases his work clothes. And somebody comes by and picks them up and washes them. Well, our guys, it's a little bit harder. We have to issue them. So with part-timers, it's a little more difficult to issue those because those guys may be here 1 week, they may be here 3 months, they may be here years. And so it's a little more difficult to issue gear to them, or issue a station wear to them. So right now what we go with is basically what Aaron's wearing here, a t-shirt that's cotton material, and then 511 pants that are cotton material. But we're going to slowly start transitioning into the station where it's fire rated and protect our guys. So just a little cost per firefighter. So our structure gear was $29.20. Our radio and pager was $54.50 for the radio and the pager. Our wildland gear was about $19.29. Our station uniform is about $800. So a total cost about $11,099 for 1 firefighter. So we take that and we do 20 volunteers, we have 22 part-timers, and we have 1 full-timer, which is myself. Totals up to 43 firefighters. So the total cost, if we were to buy all brand new gear tomorrow for them, is $477,257. So for our whole fleet, we've done that. So what we've done over the time is that gear has to be replaced every 10 years. It's required. It has to be out of service, and that includes the helmet, everything in there. Everything they have has a date, a manufacture date. From that manufacture date, you have 10 years. So at 10 years, you throw it away. Or usually what we do, we don't throw it away. Usually what we do is we donate it. We give it to Helping Hands. It's a Texas Forestry Service. They have a Helping Hands program, and then they will take it and give it to like Mexico. They'll take it to other departments, volunteer departments that can't afford it. So they'll give them to them through Helping Hands. But because of because we have paid firemen, we have the regulations, and so at 10 years they're done for us. But $477, but $11,000. So what we try to do is we try to stagger that purchase. And so this year we purchased 3 or 4 sets, and the next year we purchased another 3 or 4 sets. And so we try to stagger that 10 years to where it doesn't, we don't have all of a lump sum bit of money. The challenging part is the part-timers and the volunteers, because the gear is sized, measured for the person, because it's very it's required to you have so much spacing. So what they say is, like on your coat, you grab your coat, you twist, and you should be able to twist one time, one full 180, and that is a good enough air gap to allow for the gear to work on properly. So when we have a new person come and go, hopefully they're the same size as somebody that was here or left, and we do try to if a probationary firefighter comes in, we try to give them as good a gear as we can, but it's usually not. It may not be something that's brand new, and so they have to stay here a couple of years, and then we'll issue them brand new gear. Usually what we say is, when you go through the academy and you get certified and we do this, we'll buy you the helmet, we'll buy you this. And so we'll invest in you after you've invested in us. And so we try to do that. But on the rotation, the guys get in, and then we rotate the gear for who gets new gear. Any questions about the gear? No? It's not cheap. Yeah, absolutely. It's not cheap. And so, and that gear is not just. This isn't just us. This is a nationwide deal. So we everybody has the same deal. But with the gear comes routine inspections, and has to be clean a certain way. NFPA 1851 says we have to routinely inspect it. Usually, what we do is before every or once a week or something, the guys get the gear. They'll go through it, make sure it doesn't have any nicks or any cuts, anything unusual with the gear. They'll inspect it, and then if that inspection comes up, then they have to move to the next one, which is the gear must be advanced inspection annually, and it must be clean annually. So they have there's a certain inspection. They have they take the gear, they put it over some kind of testing device that shoots water through it, and it gives you a score, and then based on that score is whether or not your gear has seen too much fire or too much heat, and then they test it, and then based on that testing is whether it passes or fails. If it fails, you have to get new gear. If it passes, then it's good for another year. So every year we get that annual inspection, and there's a cost. It depends on the condition of the gear. If the gear has any rips, they'll replace the rips, and so that cost varies from $50 to $500 depending. A base inspection is about $50, and then they tack on their repairs after that. It has to be done through a third.
Is that for all gear?
For all.
Or per person?
For all gear. So if
they charge you $50 to come in there and test all of your gear.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the state will inspect you, and if we do not have records certifying that we've inspected, we're subject to fines.
No, I'm just saying, but for $50, they come in and inspect things. I mean, that just seems...
Per set, yeah, per set. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
She was afraid... She was asking per person or for the whole crew. You were saying, but you're implying that it's not $50 for the shirt, $50 for the pants. Yeah. It's for one set.
For one set. Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. For that whole set.
Everything for one person.
Yeah, I'm sorry. For that one set of gear, we'll put it in the bag. We'll take it in that $50 for that one set. But so let's say it's per person per year. And it has to be done, we usually do it through a third party. The testing equipment's kind of expensive, and so unless you have the testing equipment, you can send people to get training, but the equipment itself is pretty expensive. So usually we just cheaper to go to a third party. But it does have to do that and the inspection yearly. And then again, it has to be 10 years, has to be replaced. So let's talk about our SCBA, our self-contained breathing apparatus. Aaron has one here. They're used for air supply while fighting fire. This is a smaller bottle. This is about a 45-minute bottle. We have a larger one that's 60 minutes, and so the weight varies based on which one you get. But currently they're regulated by NFPA 1852 in 1981, and these were, the current ones we have on our trucks were purchased in 2003. They're allowed 3 standards, so basically it's three moods. So the standard we purchased them on were on the 2003 or 2002 standard, and so it's 3 standards. The 2019 standard just came out, which is the 3rd standard. So these are after that standard. These after their service, they're no longer. We can't put them on our trucks.
So were the bottles bought staggered, or will you have to replace them all at the same time?
No, we'll have to do it all at one time. It was It was a grant-funded purchase, so it was purchased all at one.
It is not unusual for a fire department to purchase them all at one time.
It makes sense to me because I don't want to wonder which one I'm
Well,
grabbing.
and not only that, they have to be serviced, and what you don't want is different bottles, and they have to be serviced at a fire.
Makes complete sense.
So it's just better to get them all, maintain them all, and move on.
And then you buy them on that same standard, so that standard you just keep going. Because what the manufacturer has to do is each standard changes, they have to come and alter their equipment to meet the standard. And so they give a life expectancy. And so basically the bottle life is 20 years for just the bottle itself, and they require every 5 years we have to get them hydrostatically tested. They go to a third party and they get tested. These are carbon fiber bottles. They're supposed to withstand the heat and everything. So every fire they go in, they kind of degrade, and so we send them to get tested every 5 years. And what they do is, I don't know, I guess they do it to test and see if they blow up, so that they don't blow up when we refill them. Because what we do is we use them, we pull the air out, and then we'll go take them back to our station, and then we push air back in it. And you're talking about 4,500 pounds, 4,500 PSI inside this bottle. And so it's very important. Those things, when they blow up, they blow up. And so you put them inside of a look like a rocket shelter deal when you're airing them up. But they do also require the packs to be tested annually. So this is the pack is the harness part here. This is the pass device. This is when a firefighter goes down, you hear the chirp noise. But the pack itself is annually, and and that's the regulator. It's part of the pack. That is annually inspected, and then the bottle is every 5 years. And these are requirements. When the TCFP inspector comes, this is probably the first thing he looks at, because this is #1 life-saving device for when we go into a structure. So we keep these, we take them very seriously. But just one pack, just what you see here, is $7,200, and that is including the mask that you see here. Each mask goes with it, and so the mask then sells for about $1,000. And then the pack itself is the rest of it. So, but this will be something you'll see in the budget. It's going to have to be replaced this year, so you'll definitely see these. We have, I think, approximately 21 of them right now. We'll be asking for about 20 of them. So there's about 4 to 5 per truck. So, and that's just the number. To get to that number, we have to have 17 minimum to get to the number, and then you may have one go out of service for repairs, and so you have backups, and so we're going to ask for 20. So, all right, you're good here. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you, Aaron. Good, Vanna. So some more of our equipment. So fire hose. Our fire hose has to be tested annually and replaced as necessary. NFPA 1962, there's a third-party company that we pay. They come in, they take all of our hose, they hook them up, they pressurize them, and they let them sit for an extended period of time, and they see if they have any leaks. They see if sometimes they'll pop, they'll blow up, they'll do this. And then whatever passes goes on for another year, and then we just continue to do that. And so we just try to make sure that on a fire, when they get damaged, we'll pull them, we'll send them for testing, and then they'll come back. Or if they're just damaged beyond, we throw them away because you can't do anything beyond that. The ladders are the same way. They got to be tested annually, replaced as necessary per NFPA 1932, and there's a specific third-party way to do that. Same with the pump. All of our pumps on all of our trucks, they're tested, pressure tested. They have a third-party company that flows water at what's the PSI? Like 200 for so many minutes, 150 for so many minutes, and so it has to sit there and run, and it has to meet that. So equipment continued. These are our current tools, our current extrication tools. These were purchased quite a bit ago. I think they're in the 9 to 10 years right now. They still work fine. They work great. Our other set is getting a little older. They're in the 15-year range. And so what we're looking at doing is going to upgrade tools to the battery-powered ones, and I'll show you what it is. So versus having all the lines drug all over the place, you have a loud power pack. You have a battery-powered. This is a battery-powered tool. It's basically just, this is it, and they look like that. And so instead of having all the hoses connected to the different ones, you have batteries, and they're faster, they're more powerful, they cut stronger. And so this is the latest and greatest. They don't make the cabled ones anymore. So this is all they're doing.
I'm sure they're cheap. How much is that puppy?
So the whole set that you see right there is $30,000. It's about $10,000 a set, $10,000 a tool.
This is where the fire boys win. They got the most expensive toys. The popo drools over their stuff, but this is where the firemen excel.
That's because they got the used car.
I'm going to go home.
That could be it. That could be.
I'm going to go home and find out what that fire equipment stock is worth. Lord.
Absolutely. So again, faster extrication, low noise. The noise is important when we're trying to communicate with a patient, and you have a loud tool, and you're working around, and it's overwhelming for the patient to hear the loud tools, all the noise, and so these are very quiet. You kick them on, and you're gonna lift it up, and that's it. And so. Yeah, it is enough to scare somebody, but it's not near as loud as having a motor going. So. All right, here, thank you. So certifications and training. All of these are some basic stuff. We have basic structural firefighter, basic wildland. We have driver operator. When we have an aerial device, there's a special certification for driving it. We have instructors. We have fire officers, and then we have some advanced levels. So you can get like a structure, basic, and go to intermediate, go to advanced, and then master is the last one. And each level you progress. We do a lot of every first Thursday is a business meeting with just our members. We go and we talk, and I give them the updates of the month. The second Thursday is our maintenance, where we go to the station. We do nothing but just service the trucks. We go through all the equipment, we turn them on, we get them all running, we make sure everything's good to go. The third Thursday, and we do that, that's for the volunteers. The paid guys do that daily, but the volunteers, that's their chance to come up and get their hands on with the equipment. The third Thursday is training night, and then the fourth Thursday is training night, and we rotate stations. So every other month we're at our station, every other month we're at ESD 2 station, at Station 4 on 95. Those trainings are different every month. This month is wildland. Last month was extrication. The month before that was, what did we do? Fire behavior. We went around, we did structure protection. We learned how to put out how fires work and what the new stuff is out there. Yes, ma'am.
So most of that training's online, and you just subscribe to that service, so you're not having the expense of sending people out of town and so forth. I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so none of it's online. Oh, well, some of it is online. You can go individually and take it online, but to do the mass, what we do is we send instructors. So what we'll do is we'll send somebody to go learn it, and then they'll come back and teach it to us in-house. Yeah, we do a train the trainer. So they'll come back and they'll teach all the volunteers, and we that's normally what we do. Or we do outside, like we'll have teaks. They do they'll do area training. They'll have a regional person that comes and he does training for us. So we bring out outside. So it's not always just us teaching each other. We have outsiders that come in and do training. Yes,
so
ma'am.
when somebody comes in and teaches something that you've sent them off for, do the people they teach get certified?
Yes. Yeah, they get a certificate. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And so, again, with the in-house training without ESD2 and sharing sharing the resources with the training, we couldn't do it without them. But TEACs, they come in, we go to them, and then area schools. One of the ones is like Katy. Every year, this Katy Fire Department puts on an extrication school, and I send people there. LaGrange does some stuff. We do some here in the county, and so we send people to different classes. And then we do annual continuing, and that's part of just every year. We do the same training. The guys say, well, I just did that last year. Yeah, well, it's required. So we have to do it every year. We do the same thing, and it's just a refresher. And the more you train, the more you do it.
And if you were a certified paramedic, that's 4 hours a month, so that's 48 hours a year on top of what he's shown you here, which is just the fire side of the house. So these guys do nothing but train, but you can see how multi-talented they have to be and why so much training is required. We require a lot of them.
Absolutely. And a lot of the CE stuff, the continuing education, a lot of that can be done online individually. And so a lot of that we do online, especially the medical side. We'll sign them up. We pay for it. We'll sign them up for an online class or online training. They'll do that, and then they keep their CEs that way. Because medical is a little bit harder to do in-house training for, because you have to be medically certified or a paramedic, or it's just a little bit difficult. And so a lot of that is online. So I think that's it for 2B. Yes, ma'am.
Any questions about this section before we leave and move to the next one?
So, is there any sort of, okay, so to me it just seems like that it's a lot to expect the city to just take care of everything all the time, every bit of it. So are there any sort of courses that you, for example, could invite families in to take as far as like in-home safety, having a fire extinguisher, stuff like that, where they could actually get a discount on their insurance and learn how to, exit the house safely, or tell everybody where the fire, stuff like that. I mean, is there stuff that we could offer? And in the process of offering that, maybe they get discounts on their insurance, and then also you bring people in to maybe get a resource base for volunteers.
Not familiar with it, nor do we have the manpower.
They do as much public awareness as they can, and honestly, the best people to give public awareness to is the kids, because they're excited and they go home and ask all the questions to the parents.
Yes,
is
absolutely.
What I've been told.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. We do the stop, drop, and roll, and then I'll have parents stop by and say, "Hey, my kid was at the thing. I hear you'll have free fire alarms." Oh, absolutely, and then we'll give them fire alarms, and then we do some training here and there. And part of our daily stuff is we do go to houses. We do for the elderly and stuff. We replace batteries and fire alarms, and we do that as a part of our deal. But again, with the public education, it is tough for us because of the limited staff I have. They're maintaining the trucks during the day. We've got maintenance fire hydrants. We've got pre-plans to do. We've got there's tons of stuff to do, and so it's a little bit more difficult to get out right now.
And it doesn't change what your certification requirements are or your obligations.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Really, really good job, Chief.
Chief, I just got one comment.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank the city and fire department for giving the alarm, smoke detectors, and so forth out to the elderly people.
Yes.
Because some people really, really need them, and I think they've got extended life on them anymore. Not just till the battery run down; they last a while longer.
Yeah, I think they're at 10 years right now.
Yeah.
But it's not just the elderly. It's open to anybody. I have hundreds of them. if you need one, all you got to do is stop by the fire station, or you call our non-emergency number, and the guys will come by and put them in for you. And so, or we'll come by and check them for you. It's a part of the service. It's more important that those go off because that's what's going to tell you to get out. So it keeps me from sending people in to get you, and it gets you out. So absolutely.
Again, thank you very much, because the commercial ones you buy at, say, Walmart, they last about a month and they start chirping. And I've got a mother that would get on a little step ladder and take it down.
Oh, all she got to do is call us. So.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Great job. Thank you very much. All right, council, we're moving to item C. 3 out of 5. We're at discuss vehicle replacement fund and vehicle replacements for fiscal year 2020.
Yeah, so I just have like 30 slides, so I'll make this quick. No, I'm just
That's
kidding.
not funny.
Yeah, this is your finance.
I didn't realize she had a sense of humor. Folks laugh. That's funny.
Well, after that,
She's tired, too.
After that, I'll make this real quick.
Yeah.
But anyway, I did want to give you some history because I think most of you are new from when we created the Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Fund. So I put, it was established in February of 2016. It was created for a couple of reasons. One is we had excess fund balance, and we knew that a lot of our fleet and equipment was already past its replacement life and needed to put this money away and start creating a plan for the vehicle and equipment replacement. And as you know, after this, we've had some changes in we had a temporary city manager for a while, and then Linda's been here for a while. And so we're still in the process of creating that plan, which we knew when we created the fund that it would take many years to get all of the fleet and equipment in the fund, because it's a process. At the time we created the fund, we had about $650,000 that we moved into the fund. Since fiscal 17, what we did is we took all the vehicle and equipment that had been purchased in 15 and 16, and we put them in the fund and started paying lease payments on them. So those first lease payments started in fiscal 17. The program, like I said, the program takes years to get all of your fleet into it because you have to replace the fleet and then put it in the program and start paying lease payments on it. The purpose of establishing a vehicle and equipment replacement fund policy is to establish a decision-making process and criteria for purchase, replacement, elimination, and disposition of vehicles and equipment. The policy also establishes procedures to ensure that adequate funds will be available to purchase fleet assets and to fund that part of the City of Bastrop's capital budget related to the purchases, thereby stabilizing the budgeting for major fleet purchases. So if you're just putting the lease payments into the fund, when that vehicle or equipment comes up for replacement, the funds are there. You go and you buy the replacement and you start the lease payments again. So
the importance of that is that if we're really going to be fiscally sustainable, our equipment needs to be built into our tax rate. And so whether it's park maintenance, building maintenance, fleet maintenance, our goal is over the next few years is to begin to work toward that. So in the instance of where we would take fund balance, you would buy it, but you have to put that first year lease payment in the budget. And then by the time the vehicle needs to be replaced, there's money there to replace it. And that's the theory. But for me, it's fiscal sustainability, because if we've got it in our tax rate, this equipment, and we've heard a great presentation from the chief, it doesn't matter how pretty they look, it doesn't matter how up-to-date their equipment are, if they don't have the equipment they need that functions and rolls, they can't get there with anything that matters. So it's critical for our ability to serve the public. So the end game for us, and part of what we're doing, is building this multi-year plan. And again, I think Tracy's right on. It could be a decade before we get to a place that this happens.
But it can't get over if we don't start, and that was the point of it.
yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So right now, where we stand in the fund, or as far as all of our vehicle and equipment that we have on our list at this time, not excluding any future replacement of the fire trucks, we are 43% funded. So there's 57% of unfunded vehicle and equipment out there. So I looked at the replacement years, and just to give you, we have 1.9 million that should be replaced in fiscal 2020 based on the schedule. That's all funds. And most of the fund balance that has been put in this fund, that original $650,000, most of that has been, we've purchased equipment with that over the years. So basically what's in the fund at this point is the lease payments ready to replace those when they come up for replacement. Trey and I have had, I've had a couple of meetings with Enterprise. Trey sat through one of them, and we've been working on the list that he's given us. We're looking at what it would take if we went on a lease option for our, what they call white fleet, which is your trucks. Your this doesn't address our equipment. This doesn't address our, heavy equipment, our dump trucks, our all of that type of equipment. It doesn't really even, it doesn't address the fire at all, and BP&L's trucks are well, the police can be included in it, but BP&L's trucks are kind of, this might not work for them as far as an option. But we are taking a look at what they can offer us on just our white fleet, and see if, we need to look at that cost and see if that cost, based on the lease payments that we would be paying ourselves, the maintenance that we would be incurring, see if there's a savings there. So we are entertaining that option at this point. And that's what I have.
Part of what we will be presenting is the revised vehicle equipment replacement fund. We are working through the standards, and part of what we're going to ask you to do as a part of this budget is to adopt the policy standards. The policy standards that were adopted in 2006 were too rich for my blood, and as your city manager, I've got to stand behind whatever we recommend. So the chief has looked at his fleet, has extended the years of life that the vehicles are being replaced, and basically we've taken a poll, and what would we do personally? And so there's some fleet, like our white goods, as I call them. We probably run those like we run our personal vehicles. So we need to be as responsible with the taxpayers' money as we are with our own checkbook. Clearly, the police department, your heavy equipment, what I call the yellow iron, it takes a beating. And so we have to be reasonable with what that is. So we're still internally addressing those, but as a part of the budget process this year, we're going to ask you to adopt new standards so that we can figure out what that fund needs to look like, and over the next 5 to 10 years move toward getting that funded. So the next item is 2D, and at this point in time, we're going to turn it over to Chief Nagy, and he's going to walk us through the process for police vehicle replacements.
Good job, Tracy.
Linda, as we're looking at our fleet replacement and looking at considering leasing the vehicle, do we have the data to support a side-by-side analysis on the life cycle costs of that?
That's part of what Enterprise will do. Essentially what they do is they give you a new fleet, and they can give you a fleet, maintain it, and sell it while the resale value is high, cheaper than you can keep it and maintain it. And there are a couple of cities that have gone to this and are really pleased. Chief Altgeld and Chief Rosales are visiting with a couple of fire chiefs that are actually leasing their fire equipment. So what the market is now doing is moving to a leased fleet where nobody owns it, they don't have to maintain it. I think in some instances that probably works. I think there's some equipment that doesn't. This is one of those things we're asking those questions because when it's too good to be true, it normally is. So I want to know what's the caveat, what's the asterisk, what's the balloon payment going to look like. So they're in the process of going through that. Enterprise is going to submit a quote, and then we will pick it apart. But that's the theory: is they sell it quicker than you and I would, and the residual of that payment covers the maintenance, and they can still make a profit.
Okay, so we're on item 2D, discuss police vehicle replacements for fiscal year 2020. Chief Navy.
Well, first, I'm a little hesitant. Chief Andres did such a good job there. So we'll go ahead and kick it right off. Mayor, City Council, and City Manager. A couple months ago, Chief Altgilt had asked me to kind of research the patrol vehicles within our fleet, and we really just concentrated just on the patrol aspect of it. So what we did is myself and I assigned Patrol Sergeant Chris Chavez to help me out. He was great. He did some research for us. And this is really the first time that I know of that the Bastrop Police Department has really kind of looked at a data approach to picking our vehicles. About 10 years ago, I think 9 years ago, so 2010 is when Ford started to kind of phase out the Crown Victorias. The only other manufacturer really stepped up at that time was going to be Chevrolet and their Tahoes. And we were able to purchase some of those. We kind of did a short program at that time to articulate why we wanted to move from the retiring Crown Vic up to the Tahoes. Now there's many more options. You have the three majors, auto manufacturers that produce all different cars, and they actually produce different types with different motors. They even produce hybrids, and it goes like that. So I want to tell you a little bit myself. I am an emergency vehicle operator course instructor. What that is it's meant to train officers to operate their patrol units at high rates of speed. That includes high rate backing, evasive maneuvers, emergency braking, precision driving, all while under high stress. And this is really where these officers operate these vehicles at their limit. They learn what the limit of those vehicles are, and they realize pretty quickly that the vehicles aren't going to cause them any problems. It's going to be themselves. So when someone generally causes a crash or there's some sort of something on the roadway, it's not a vehicle breaking down. It's generally going to be human error. That's what we teach our officers. So over the past 7 years, I've instructed members of the Bastrop Police Department, the Bastrop County Sheriff's Office, the Smithfield Police Department on emergency vehicle operations. So here's our methodology. Myself and Sergeant Chavez attended the Texas DPS Command Vehicle Showcase in Floresville. And what that was, it allowed police agencies to explore each vehicle, drive them at pursuit speeds along a racetrack that included straightaways. It included hills with turns, regular turns, and it even included a little bit of backing. And we drove the Chevrolet, Dodge, and the Ford vehicles. So the first picture on the left is going to be, that was actually a tribute to breast cancer. It was going to be a Ford Explorer. There's going to be inside of that, along with the Dodge Charger, is the third picture. And the last picture is going to be the actual back of the truck. We also evaluated research to Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department annual vehicle test. And they test all the vehicles and they test all the package of each vehicles. That's going to be an unbiased. And one thing that's important to note, when Sergeant Chavez and I were reviewing this, we kind of purposely stayed away from the manufacturer's websites. We didn't want to get that biased information. We really wanted to get the information that was unbiased from places like this. We evaluated and researched the Michigan State Police Department and Justice Technology and Information Center, model year 2019. So every year, I think for about the past 10 years, so they started in 2009, they evaluated all the manufacturers, almost all the vehicles. So this year, they actually evaluated almost 10 different vehicles that went through their system. And that goes through how they brake, the room inside, the ergonomics, and everything from gas mileage to the approximate purchase price for each vehicle. Last we went through Consumer Reports. As you may be aware, Consumer Reports is a nonprofit, unbiased organization that reviews and rates products. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to look at the crash ratings. So those crash ratings really, they're easy to tabulate through Consumer Reports, and once again, they're unbiased and those are on their websites. We evaluated all this data, interviewed officers and command staff, and then Sergeant Chavez and I set up a focus group that included Sergeant Hamilton, Detective Pearsons, Officer Burchell, Wagner, Barnes, and Barner. So you had command staff that look at this. We even had a detective who hasn't really drove a patrol car for a while. Maybe he thinks a little bit different now. And then Officer Bichelle, who's just going to be about a 2-year officer. Officer Wagner is a veteran of almost 23 years. And Officer Barnes is a veteran of about 1 year, only been on the department for about a month. And then Barner has been over for about 5 years. And they all had different input because they're all in kind of different stages of their career. So I want to talk a little bit about civilian versus police packages. First and foremost, police vehicles are only modified civilians. They really come off the same factory line. Some people think that they're highly modified. While they have little modification to them, we'll go to in a second, they're really off the same assembly line. So when they do come from the factory as police packages, they might have high-performance powertrains. And I use that word powertrains pretty loosely. That might just be, they might just a little bit different gearing, maybe a little bit tougher, but pretty much it's going to be the same. They do have higher output alternators to supply the extra electrical power, heavy-duty suspension components, heavy-duty steering gears, heavy-duty steel wheels, speed-rated tires, especially made for police use, and then lastly, heavy-duty brakes. So once we get that police package, how does it get to patrol? So we had the following equipment. We had the LED light bars, the police radios, the police consoles. We might add the bumpers, the computers or the modal data terminals, firearm mounts, prisoner cages, decals, markings, radar, and in-car camera. So once it comes off the assembly line, they add a little bit more to make it a little bit more rust, and then finally we go and add it, make it patrol ready. So this is our current fleet. We have 2 Chevrolet Tahoes for Chief Altgeld and I that function as police, but mostly emergency management units. Then we have 9, and ours are each 4-wheel drive. We have 9 night and day patrol units. They're shared by 2 officers, and officers rotate off of those at about 6 p.m. and then also at 6 a.m. So sometimes these vehicles drive almost 24 hours a day. We try to prevent that, but if one is in the shop or and our spare is down, we might have to do that. One is for our community resource officer, Officer McIntyre, and then one is for our administrative Tahoe for Administrative Officer Matt Wagner. Now that one is also can supplement as a patrol unit as needed. All right, so what are patrol units to officers? Of course, it gets us from point A to point B, but we got to remember that our citizens at point B, we need to get there in a timely manner. We need to be able to get there safely, of course. It helps transport everyone from those little old ladies in wheelchairs to teenagers that haven't developed a conscience straight to jail. You know, a lot of poor people that we transport don't like us very much, and they're particularly mad at us at times. We want to make sure that we're protected. It's the officer's office 8 to 10 hours a day. That means it's almost 1,700 hours a year in their vehicle. That's a lot of time. And so this is the inside of one of our current Tahoes. You can see that we've got quite a bit of equipment. We've got our camera system. We've got our MDT, that computer that I showed you. Back here we might have our gun mounts depending on how the vehicle's set up. And then we have our console here that has quite a bit of their equipment. We have up here is going to be a radar unit. And as the city grows, we even have some officers that are having to use GPS. It's also our blocker vehicle at accidents and traffic stops. But we'd much rather have, kind of like the city manager discussed, buying a blocker vehicle. It is, or a fire truck. Sometimes our vehicles do become the blocker vehicles. This is a vehicle that was a Ford Explorer from the Michigan State Police Department, and it was hit back in at probably about 60 miles an hour. And it was funny, when I looked up this picture, I was trying to find it. Sometimes the computer will tell you what it thinks the picture is, and it said it thought that was a motorcycle. It can also be our ballistic shield. You know, just in the past couple of weeks, we've had we use that as a shield, and it actually occurs quite often. A lot of times just for safety, but sometimes where we're hunkered down in that vehicle and we're at that door and we're at that A-frame for a matter of about 30 minutes to probably about an hour.
You've used it for a shield just in the last couple of weeks?
Someone didn't actually shoot at us, but we're always prepared in case they do. And this individual did have a weapon. We knew he had a weapon. It was actually Sergeant Chavez that was on scene. He was there for quite a while, and that vehicle was being used as a shield at that time.
Thank you.
It's also their EMS units, and unfortunately sometimes an ambulance. These are some texts that I received, and I'm referring back to what the city manager had said, but this is over the 6 times, you can see the dates and the times, when we were notified that there wasn't a Acadian EMS unit within 25 minutes, 20 minutes. One was responding from Hayes County, which is about 45 minutes. One from the airport. Last one here is 20 minutes, and this one we didn't even know when they were coming. So approximately about 2 months ago, Sergeant Chavez responded to a call where an individual was shot. And he had to make the difficult decision, do I wait for EMS or do I use my vehicle as an ambulance vehicle and transport this individual to the hospital? And he did the right thing. He put that individual in there and he took him straight to the hospital, and the person lived.
What hospital? Did you take him here or did you take him to Austin?
It was going to be here. Sergeant Chavez, where was it at? St. David's, and they transported him out. Of course, it's our race car and monster truck all rolled into one. And lastly, it's going to be our community relations vehicle. So here you have on the left, you have Officer Charles Sanford and Officer McIntyre. They show off Officer McIntyre's unit. You can just see all the kids, and this is the boring part of the vehicle. The fun part's up there, and they all just love this just as much as anything. So which vehicles were evaluated? We evaluated the big 3. Those are really the only manufacturers to offer police units, although I do hear Tesla has one, so I was disappointed we couldn't even look at that. There you go. So the initial plan was to evaluate the Chevy Tahoes, the Ford Explorers, the Ford Taurus, include the hybrids, and the Dodge Durangos and the Dodge Chargers. But we had to take out not even really evaluate the hybrid and the sedans. They were eliminated kind of basically just due to storage space. We carry so much stuff with us, and our officers are so well equipped that we couldn't fit everything in the trunk. Especially now that we're even researching having patrol officers augment the fire department, we're going to have all that stuff as well. The hybrid just hasn't been patrol tested. It's kind of new on the market. I didn't think that we wanted to be necessarily the guinea pigs.
Hybrids need to change an awful lot before police ought to drive them, because hybrids are not built to take the abuse that give them. So I'm never in favor of that, because we will be guinea pigs and they won't work.
And then lastly, with the sedans, we operate in an urban and rural environment, and it just requires higher profile vehicles to get everything over from the curbs to the mud. So this is going to be the 2019 Chevrolet Tahoe. It has a 5.3-liter engine V8. It's kind of just that basic motor. It's going to get us to where we need to go. It gets us there relatively reliable. So you can see kind of the inside. It's pretty spacious, along with a very large kind of trunk space that we always need. This right here is the 2019 and/or 2020 Ford Explorer. They actually come in 3 different engine sizes, and we just kind of select we're going to pick the smallest, and then also the largest, and one is a turbo model. This is really a brand new model. That's why it's kind of in the almost the camouflage there. And this is also going to be new. It's going to be the 2019 Dodge Durango, and we looked at the larger motor, the 5.7 liter, and then also the smaller motor, 3.6 liter. It's also very roomy on the inside, and then it has quite a bit of space on the back end as well. However, when we looked at it, it has some area here that really takes up quite a bit of room over the wheel wells. That makes it a little bit hard to get anything square in there. So what did we evaluate? We met with the focus group, and selected the circus. And
that's not a Freudian slip, is it?
If you knew my guys, you might the circus would fit. And we really wanted to look at the data, and look at the data in a way that really maybe even kind of went against our perception or actually what we might have wanted. So first of all, we looked at the safety, and originally we had actually applied a number to this. And we thought, we kind of went back and said, you know what, safety is non-negotiable. That's one of those ones that it just needs to be a safe vehicle. Even everything else is perfect, it can't be that. So ergonomics, this kind of goes on the comfort of the vehicle. They are sitting in it, like I said, 8 to 10 hours a day. It's a long time. We have these belts on. How wide are the seats? how well can you reach the dials, how can you see the screens as well. So that was important, up to 25%. And then reliability. We have had some problems with our current Tahoes, with the newer generation Tahoes. They are in the shop quite often, and sometimes it's just for little things. But to get stuff repaired under warranty work takes sometimes 2 or 3 days. And if it's going to be a major problem with the motor, then sometimes it takes up to a week, 2 weeks. So storage, this is one of those ones we really had to look at the practicality. And while it doesn't measure up to safety in any way, we really need to make sure we can get all of our equipment to a particular place and do it well, because like I said, our officers are so well outfitted. We looked at performance, and the braking was 15%. I was really surprised that the acceleration wasn't 100%, because my guys like to drive fast, but they picked 10%. Total performance, this is really kind of vehicle dynamics, they picked 10%. The purchase price was 7.5%. And the community fit was 7.5%. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that we just thought that that was just worth 7.5%, but the vehicles, and we'll kind of go through in a couple seconds, are priced pretty well together. So a couple $1,000s here, a couple $1,000s there, while it makes a difference, it wasn't enough that the purchase price needed to be quite a bit higher.
What's community fit?
So what do our citizens think of the vehicles that we drive? So the perception might be, is like our current Tahoes, that they see you go to Covert and you see one less than $60,000. So then when we're driving around Tahoes, sometimes people might think, well, gosh, the police department was really doing good. They're making $60,000.
I got you.
When in reality, you're buying the base product. It's nothing like that.
Okay, thanks.
So then we analyzed all that criteria. We analyzed reliability, so how reliable is the vehicle, and then how robust is the warranty. Then we went to ergonomics and safety, performance, and last, the practicality and the cost. So the reliability indicates whether the vehicle had more or fewer problems over the average model that year, calculated by the number of total problems reported, all trouble spots. And the extra weight is given to the more serious areas, such as major engine or transmission problems. So this goes from more reliable to less reliable on a 5-point scale. So you can see the Tahoe, the Explorer, and then the other Explorer with the larger motor had 3 out of 5, which isn't necessarily great. And the Dodge Durango, the smaller motor and the larger motor, had about a 2.5. Now this is what the data we got from Consumer Reports. All 3 have a 36,000-mile bumper-to-bumper warranty with the 5-year, 100,000-mile drivetrain warranty. So ergonomics, this is where we went the front seat, the padding, the adjustability, had ribbon seat belts with ease of entry and exit. Instrumentation, what's the placement, how clear was it? Controls, the pedals, the switches, the steering wheels, and then the visibility throughout. So we have some officers that are rather tall and are weigh a little bit more than other officers do. Yes, yeah, all shapes and sizes. To an officer is just completely different. So we want to kind of get to where all officers are comfortable. That might be difficult to do. We want to try and do that. So on a 10-point scale, the Dodge Durango 3.6 and the Dodge Durango 5.7 all had an 8.07. That's actually pretty high on a 10-point scale. The Tahoe just a little bit under that, and then lastly the Explorers were just a little bit under that. So storage. As I go back, we already eliminated these 2 sedans because of the storage. So each unit currently carries about 47.5 feet for 2 officers, and that's going to be really all this in this area here. We want to keep any equipment from going up here because you just can't see very well. And officers drive by their rear view mirrors. While the new cars have the camera systems and the backup cameras, it's just old habit to drive by the rear view mirrors. So this will include firearms, our EMS safety gear, our protective vests. Our officers are better equipped, and we do not necessarily rely on specialization. So you might say, well, why does DPS get to have the Chargers? And they're a large agency. Well, they're not near as specialized as the Bastrop Police Department is. So that's something that every officer has a tool to do almost every job. We're rather proud of that. Officers carry their gear in the vehicle, it's unreasonable if we're taking it in and out of the vehicle at shift change. We want to make sure that it just gets damaged. Our police department really isn't designed to hold all that gear. And due to the nature of patrol, seconds and, of course, count when changing vehicles must be quick. So we want, once one officer pulls in at that 6 o'clock time, we want the another officer to be pulled right out, especially depending on the call. So you'll see here, this is going to be the cubic feet per vehicle. So the Chevrolet Tahoe has 112. Now some of that does include up here. The Ford Explorers have just about 90. The Dodge Durangos have about 47. So if I'll remind you, we carry an average of about 47.5 feet per cubic per officer. So these just barely fit right here on the Dodge Durangos. So this is going to be storage for emergency management. This is going to be the back of my vehicle. I didn't take everything out because I was too lazy to put everything back in. So we have a hazmat suit that goes from head to toe. I have my body armor, emergency management equipment such as dry erase boards, computer hardware, manual annexes. I have 3 full days of EM situational clothing, crash investigation equipment, and I just can't give up my patrol equipment quite yet. Now you'll notice that I'm pretty high up here, but because I'm such an excellent driver, it's okay. So this is patrol storage. Our new Tahoes do have some really great boxes. They have quite a bit of drawers. They lock because we do keep firearms in the back of them. We have a roadside assistance. We have some crime scene. This is going to be a heavy ceramic vest that doesn't necessarily fold up. It's about as small as it gets there. We have our first aid. They have a full hazmat suit they carry as well. They also have some of their gear here, and they have some miscellaneous tools, or I guess those are keys. And our, help me out, there you go. All right. So safety, the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, see the police department does use a couple of those, tests vehicles during different scenarios and evaluates the effects of the crash on the vehicle on test dummies. So the first one is just going to be the frontal crash test scenario. And this is kind of just an example. You're headed south on a 2-lane road while another vehicle is driving north on that street. The driver of the other vehicle starts to fall asleep in the wheel and veers into your lane. Suddenly you collide head on with them. That's going to be that front one. You have a side barrier crash impact test. You pull up to a 4-way intersection and make a complete stop. Look to your left and right and begin to accelerate intersection. Another vehicle approaches the same intersection but doesn't yield and hits you on a T-bone. The pole crash is if you're hitting a pole at an angle, you're driving down a curved street in your neighborhood, all of a sudden you lose control of your vehicle. You start sliding sideways and you crash into a telephone pole. And the last one is going to be the rollover resistance test. You're driving your SUV at 55 miles an hour, sharp curve, you try to navigate the curve, you're traveling too fast, you lose control, and your vehicle departs the road and rolls over. So this is the overall crash ratings. I'm going to start at the bottom. So the Dodge Durangos did pretty well along with the Chevrolet Tahoe. So this is at a 4 out of 5 scale. The Explorers scored a 5. And you'll notice the arrows up top. These arrows, because Ford is the only manufacturer, I think the Ford Explorer is the only one that you can actually get hit from a rear end up to about 75 miles an hour. And that vehicle is not going to come into the front passenger compartment. And what they've done is Ford has made some really structural advantages to their vehicles by making a lot of beams that go back and forth, and I guess that's a lot of engineering that I just don't understand other than it holds up to 75 miles an hour. So that's why I thought they kind of scored higher than a 5. All right, so we're going to move on to performance. This is each vehicle was timed from 0 to 60 miles an hour. The times are listed below. So this is going to be the fastest time to the worst time. So the Ford Explorer 3.0 does pretty well. It's just about under 6. And everything else is really kind of in the 7s, except for the Dodge Durango 3.6 has about 8.5. Now one thing that's important is, as I say, seconds matter, but I really want to iterate to, when we do this emergency vehicle operations course, while seconds matter, it's more about how you drive to how fast that vehicle is going to go. So we can make this up quite a bit. Overall performance, This is each vehicle is driven along a 64-mile track to test the success or failure of each vehicle in the following categories. So it's handling, braking, acceleration, and this is going to be the combination. And this is going around a track that's at about 2 miles. This is how many seconds it takes to go around it. So the Ford Explorer, the one that kind of was quickest off the acceleration from 0 to 60, performed really well, followed by the one that had a little bit bigger engine. So this one has a turbo model. This is going to be our current Tahoes here, and then the Durangos are slightly behind that. And this has a lot to do with cornering and dynamics. So practicality and cost. This is going to be how much it is to purchase the vehicle through HGAC or Texas Smart Cooperatives. And the surprising thing is that Chevy Tahoe, while it's $60,000 off the lot at Covert, it's about $30,000 base price through a cooperative. The Durangos start at the cheapest, they're going to be about $25,000, and then the Ford Explorers are a little bit more at about $33,000. One thing that's important to note is some stuff, like the Ford Explorer, might come with just more base options. So they might come with the frontal collision warning system, while the Tahoe does not. And then the Durangos, they actually might come with something, but it might not be as sophisticated. It's never to tell. So these are going to be the approximate prices. But like I said in the beginning, really these right here are pretty close together. And then the Dodge 3.6, it is a little bit lower. So community fit, this is what we kind of discussed a couple of minutes ago. And what I did is I went out to people that weren't related to law enforcement and kind of spoke to them, about what they thought the police should drive in a small town. And most of them, or actually almost all of them, did say they thought the Ford Explorer had a fit. It was kind of a mid-range. And then the Dodge Durangos, and then because of the perception that the Chevrolet Tahoe is so expensive and a true luxury vehicle, that kind of made into the threes there. So then we kind of went, what is good for police work? The Chevy Tahoe, I think it really is the most versatile. I was disappointed that, especially with the technology now, that even our economy cars come with, that the driver alert packages weren't standard. Some consider it the best for the police to work. Now, one problem is our current fleet is in the shop often. We've spent almost $15,000 within about the past year. Now, some of that is just going to be preventive maintenance or something like tires, but it's still quite a bit for our fleet. The Dodge has what's called a no-cost officer protection package. This is where a police officer can park in a corner if that's what he wanted to, or next to a wall. And if someone were to come up behind him, the vehicle would alert him. It would maybe roll the windows up, the rear view camera would come on, or it would be like a chime that said, hey, look, someone's behind you. Once again, we kind of went to the sedans and limited storage was just a deal breaker. Now all the Dodges, except for a Charger, so once we really looked at the Durangos, are new to the police lineup. They're not tested in the real world quite yet. The Ford, the biggest one, is kind of going back to that safety. It's designed for that 70-mile-per-hour collision. This is the first ever. They do have a no-cost officer protection package. They are all-wheel drive, which is good in most circumstances, but sometimes it might be a little bit more to maintain with that all-wheel drive system. And then also, it's the only one that will have custom fit from the factory. Now, this is optional, but bullet-resistant door panels. So this is kind of why it's a little bit more expensive. All right, so what do all these numbers say? So once again, this is kind of what we had evaluated. And this is going to be the best to worst scale. So this is going to be all those weights averaged out of a 0 to 5 scale. Where does it fall? So the first up was the Ford Explorer. The second was going to be the Dodge Stranger 3.6, followed by just barely after that, the Dodge Durango 5.7, the Ford 3.3 liter, and then last the Tahoe. So a lot of our officers really like those Tahoes, but when we put the data together, it said, well, you might think you like the Tahoes, but that's probably actually your least favorite. Some of them are really upset. So recommended. So my recommendation is Chief Altgilt's Tahoe is in dire need to be replaced. I think we need to replace that with the Tahoe. It's just got the storage. While the crash rating isn't as high, and while there's a little bit of problem with the reliability, we don't drive those vehicles really very fast. And so there's just not that, we're not going to get in a crash. And I also recommend the same thing for the
I've ridden with Chief Altgeld, so I would take an exception to that.
I was going to say, we can't sit here with a straight face, Clint. What we can say is that it's highly unlikely that the chief will be in a full-on pursuit. But if they they're the more seasoned officers, and they are skilled to drive.
And like Chief Nagy, when I was in Lubbock, I was also an EVOC instructor, and so for 14 years I taught all the rookie classes, then the recertification for the department, and I had to recertify as an instructor every 3 years. So you might say I have a little bit higher skill set than what the average person does.
I didn't say I didn't like driving with you. I just said I've seen you drive fast before.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So once again, we were forced to eliminate the Dodge Chargers and then the hybrids for fear of beta testing and also storage. We just can't sacrifice our officers being so well equipped. And then lastly, we let the data speak for itself. You know, we thought we liked the Tahoe, and then we thought we'd like the Dodge Durango with the larger motor, but that's just not what had come out in the end. So overall, my recommendation is for us to diversify our patrol fleet, budget for 2 Explorers, which the data said we should do, and then to diversify it to 1 Dodge Durango 3.6. And this will really allow us to, if let's say a Ford goes in, there's a recall on the Fords. Our fleet isn't just diminished right away. And a good example is what happened in APD probably about a year ago, where they had all the 4 Explorers had a problem. They couldn't drive them or anything, and they were kind of shuffling around their other units around it to get everything covered. And that will end my presentation. Do we have any questions?
I think you did a great job. Council, any questions for Chief Nagy? And I really love it. Then you'll have your very own data on the 2 cars, and you'll know what other people are experiencing. I think it's a great strategy, good plan. Any comments or concerns?
That's just one comment. Kind of like the Fords, I just put 312,000 miles on a Ford Explorer until I loaned it to my granddaughter.
Excellent, excellent.
Brave man. Councilmember Ennis?
After listening to drainage and development and hours worth of information that doesn't really work up here, your report and the fire chief's report were right on. Excellent. Easy to understand, and it's right there. Thank you.
I think that the Ford Explorer is the most attractive of the 3 vehicles.
All righty.
A couple of questions. One, did y'all look at the ease of maintenance on those units?
I want to say they're basically going to be the same, other than the all-wheel drive systems. So when an all-wheel drive system goes bad, there's an extra axle. And one thing is that we've heard I talked to the Bastrop County Sheriff's Office, and they've had a couple problems with the front ends on their all-wheel drive systems. And I think that's really the only one. Maybe a turbo might go out in one of those. And what they're doing is they're just making smaller motors and putting those turbos on there so they can get from that point A to point B quickly. But it's technology that sometimes fails.
And while I like the mix of vehicles, there's also a cost benefit to standardizing the fleet also.
Only if we had our own fleet maintenance. We don't. So we have a warranty and we just ship them out. So we're not having to keep an inventory or do any of that. I would agree with you. If we were running our own fleet, you absolutely are correct. But since we don't, and they're warranty vehicles, we just ship them to the dealer.
That's the answer I was looking for.
Thank you, sir. At this point in time, Chief Rosales' duty called, so Chief Altgeld is going to finish 2E on behalf of Chief Rosales.
You can be a hero if you can be brief, Chief Altgeld. Discuss need for fire inspection plans, reviewer position, and associated fees in fiscal year 2020.
So what we're looking at for fiscal year 2020 is going to be a new component to the fire department that we're going to do on a regular and consistent basis, and that's going to be the fire prevention. It's critical for our life safety component for the city. So as we're going through the journey of updating our codes and adoption of updated standards, we're going to require that to make sure that we are inspecting and taking care of those things, is that we have annual fire inspections by our certified fire inspector. I will tell you that Chief Rosales and our fire inspector, firefighter DeArmond, have already been in contact and working with our Main Street manager and talking to our businesses and understanding and putting the word out that we're not going to come in with an aggressive fire program and put everybody out of business because they haven't had a fire inspection, and I don't know when and don't really want to know when, but we're going to start doing the right thing because it's just our safety, and when people walk into an establishment, they have an expectation that they're in a safe environment. So we're going to work on that on the transition phase, but having a certified fire inspector is essential to do that. And when we talk about fire inspector duties, that is an additional certification, not one that's very easy to attain. It requires continuing education. Firefighter department has all the qualifications for that. Assistant Chief Rod Stradling was helping out from time to time, but what we found, though, was with the amount of planning reviews that were done, what was taking place, we were having to outsource that, if you will, and use a contractor. And while some of the contractors do a good job, when you have different inspectors in those agencies, it's not their home that they're doing. They take care of it. They're not as familiar. They're reviewing plans. They're not, they don't come to Bastrop on some occasions, or when they do, they're looking just for a few things. And, I'm not casting stones, but when the contract says I'm supposed to inspect 1 through 15, and I see 16, 17, or 18, I may have the opinion that, well, that's not on the contract, that's not my problem, and we move on. And so having it in-house, and what we found with Eric is that, we're doing a very thorough inspection, and not only is it cost benefit, we're ensuring that we're getting a good product.
The other thing that Eric brings to the table is, thanks to our expanded permitting process, he is an intricate part of the development review process. If you sit and want to argue with Eric, you better bring all your books. They better be tabbed and referenced, because this young man cites the code, understands the why, and is very, very helpful in explaining to people that haven't traditionally wanted to follow it, the codes, to understand really why it's in their best interest to do so. So he is invaluable not only from the plan review standpoint, but for customer service and making sure that we can provide that when our customer comes in and are asking the questions.
So covering the planning review portion in our inspections that we would be doing on an annual basis, from time to time we do have fire investigations. So anytime we have a fire, we're curious as to what was the cause. Was it an intentionally set fire? Was it an electrical problem? What was taking place, and how do we do that? That also takes a special expertise that not only requires a certification, but it also requires the training and then the recertification to take place. So all of these components so far is something that we'd be able to bring to the table at our fire prevention branch. Some statistics here for the planning reviews that were completed. In 2017, we had a third party that started one. In 2018, when Eric came on in the latter part of August, September, he did 53. Year to date, he's already at 64 inspections, and we haven't even completed the month of April yet. Don't have the figure in front of me specifically, but I think Ms. Waldron can tell me that there is a cost-benefit savings for us doing it in-house as opposed to using a third-party contractor, besides the other reasons that I spoke about. And then in addition, the fire inspections that we're doing, and that's for facilities that are already have a certificate of occupancy or attempting to attain a new certificate of occupancy, but it's a built structure. In 2017, there was 46 done by a third party. When Eric came on in 18, he was at 78, and right now we're at 43 year to date. Please also understand that, as Chief Rosales said earlier in the presentation, Eric is only working on Mondays and Wednesdays because he has a full-time job and a family also. So we're lucky to have him those 2 days. As a result of that, and I think it's in a further slide, but I'll jump ahead from time to time, I apologize. The planning review timetable right now to turn around is approximately 21 days. We can drop that by at least a third to 14 days if we had somebody on staff 5 days a week. So what does the fire inspection or the planning review take care of? Well, we provide for life safety, and that's always what we want to focus on. And I already alluded to the public's expectation of when they walk into a facility, they're in a safe environment. We're ensuring that everyone is in compliance, and it doesn't matter who you are or where you build or what it is, everyone's going to be treated fairly. When we talk about fire pre-planning, another thing that our inspectors will do is they'll have an intricate idea of working knowledge of what the building is, where the entrances are, where they're not. They're putting that in their CAD system so that when they're en route to a particular structure, they will know all the unique features for that particular facility, and that makes them not only more effective, but much more safer for the citizens and for themselves. The city business owners benefit by economic returns. Chief Rosales already talked about the ISO factors that come from that. Our first responder safety is utmost paramount. Our philosophy is I would rather see a building burn than anybody injured, because you can always replace property, but you can't replace life. And we would be also in compliance with the International Fire Code. And we've already got all types of different numbers for NFPA and codes that we would need to be in compliance with. So from the fire inspector and police planner, we hired a full-time staff inspector for planning review in fiscal year 2020. It does a couple of things for us. As we were talking about our numbers for trying to have the number of people that we want when an alarm fire goes out, that also puts another person on staff. So our fire inspector would not say, oh, I'm in planning review, but there's a house on fire, or there's a business on fire, I can't go. That's another able-bodied firefighter that can respond. As I said, Eric is only working currently 2 days a week right now. We already talked about cutting down on our return time to our customers, which is an important value. We would start continuing with our annual inspections program and be able to map that out and be equal and consistent. And then also what was alluded to earlier this evening when we were talking about the needs for aerials is we would be able to do the inspections on our fire sprinkler systems like we're supposed to, as well as fire alarms. I told you that this would have to be as a certified position under the Texas Commission of Fire Protection for state law and the certifications that come from that. It's not very easy. Chief Rosales is in the process of taking that. He's completed his first module of 3. He's almost done with the second. And by the way, not only doing that, we saw all the calls that they've been running, all the training that they're doing, and all the other responsibilities that Chief Rosales does. So I'm very pleased with his progress for going there. So in summary, as we've heard tonight, fire protection and the assets and the equipment, the resources that are taking that is a top priority right now for the fiscal year 2020 budget. We're looking at a multi-year staffing plan so that we can see how we're going to do that. That includes not just continuing to recruit our volunteer fire force, looking at for our part-time contingency, hiring a full-time inspector, but also what Chief Rosales talked about is we have put out the word to our police officers, especially on the night shift, and surprisingly or not, maybe the adage is saying that firefighters really are police heroes, because I have several officers that are very interested in pursuing the firefighter certification and then being that augmentation for at nighttime. They can go get the apparatus, take it to the scene or stage or do whatever operationally Chief Rosales needs for them to do, and that just helps us serve our customers even better. We're talking about our equipment replacement plan. As you can see, our equipment has not had the love that it has needed, and so there's an adage: you pay now or you pay later, and it's looks like right now the bill's coming due, and we have some equipment that's in dire need of attention so that we can continue the mission that we've sworn to do. And we're looking at a fire feasibility study to talk about what is going to be the best interest and what is the best route for the city of Bastrop to take. Is that the transition to a full-time fire department with an EMS component? Is it something to stay where we're at? Or is it something that maybe the adoption of trying to move to an emergency services district is in the right interest? We don't know exactly which one is. I suspect that we may be surprised, kind of like the police department was with our vehicle study. We think we know what we know, but when we start looking at the data and everything, it may tell us something different. But the reason that we pushed it and didn't do it this year is we found that we did not have the data and have our ducks in a row to accurately provide the information to a consultant that would come in and expect us to do what we needed to do. But I think you can tell by the statistical information that Chief Rosales gave you, he is on board. He is collecting the data that needs to be collected. He is showing us what our true costs are, because he's making sure that we're doing our preventive maintenance on our equipment and our inspections that we need to be doing. And he's got a good handle on the department. And I want to remind you that he was only the interim in August and the permanent fire chief since December. So I think his progress has been amazing. So to try to do a feasibility study this summer, I deem, and I think, and the city manager agreed, and Chief Rosales also did, would be premature, and it would not be the best use of our funds at this time. I think I've covered everything. I don't know if that was quick enough, Mayor, but I didn't want to shortchange you.
No, it's fine. I think we were all convinced that the person was needed earlier in the evening, so I think it's a fairly easy sell. Is there anybody on council that's opposed to adding the position as part of the budget?
No.
Seeing none. Thank you. Excellent job. We hope that Chief Rosales is okay. And I'm sorry, what did you?
I have a question.
Absolutely.
with a fire inspector coming on board, who would be responsible for exercising the fire hydrants?
So right now, Public Works exercises the fire hydrants. And Trey, if I misspeak, let me know. But with some coordination, and I don't want to say training, but that's the only word that I know to use, sir. That could also be something that could be moved on. But also understand, I've had a really paradigm shift once I became the Director of Public Safety and was responsible for fire and learned from fire. And prior to that, when I was a commissioner, I learned a lot. And as a police officer, I used to think that firefighters played excellent Xbox, and they washed trucks, and they baked, and they cooked, and they really had an easy life. But now when I go to the stations and I watch what they do, they are tasked with just a plethora of duties and obligations. And as our calls for service increase, what I want to make sure is I want us to optimize our resources, but I don't want something as important as fire hydrant to slip through the cracks because we don't have the manpower at that time to take on that additional duty.
I'm going to answer your question. I want the fire department to do it.
Well,
and here's
totally
the reason
agree.
for that. And this is true. You've seen tonight the amount of equipment that they need to wear. So we buy them all the equipment that they need. We know we need fire equipment. We buy them all the fire equipment they need. And we know that they need to be trained. But it doesn't matter how much training they have, how great their equipment is. It doesn't matter how wonderful that apparatus is. I've never seen a fire put out without water. And at the bottom, at the end of the day, their mission is they got to have water. And the best way to ensure that they got water is to make them test that water hydrant, make sure that they understand where it is, how it functions, and there needs to be a process that when it's out of service, it's the single most important thing that Curtis Hancock and his group does, because did I mention we don't put out fire without water? And so that's a paradigm shift that both the Public Works and the fire department share, and sometimes, council member, we lose sight of the basics and forget what our mission is, and the fire department has to have water.
Well, Chief Rosales made the comment tonight, and we go to the hydrant and hope that it works. And I thought, if you were responsible for testing them, you'd know that it worked.
And in fairness, I think what Chief Rosales was saying is that there are some parts in outside the city limits where that there are black hydrants because they don't meet the fire flow, and that's not the case.
And we do have parts of Tahitian that don't have hydrants, and so that tender is important.
Ask me again the question, Councilmember Peterson.
Will the fire inspector be responsible for exercising the fire hydrant?
The fire inspector will not, but the firemen on the fire trucks will.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. One other little question. How about the standpipes? Will the inspector be doing the standpipes, or will that be done by a contractor?
My understanding is that Eric has that the standpipes are probably part of the sprinkler suppression system, and that Eric has that capability, and Chief Rosales will have that capability when they do that. So I would say right now with the option to be corrected, like I was with who's going to check the fire hydrants, that would be our inspector that did that, sir.
And one more little quick question. But thank you.
I want to go 2 for 3. That's good batting average.
All right. Now, how about will the fire inspector assist on the elevator inspections in certain buildings?
Wow. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I think that's a different certification that is a state license, and I don't think the fire department does it.
Excuse me, I don't mean just doing it, but make sure it's getting done and just kind of...
That is actually done through our emergency management. After Hurricane Harvey and the lady perished in the elevator at one of the hotels because it filled up, we came to appreciate that was an issue that we had not addressed in our emergency management. And so a list has been prepared, and I believe there's 17 elevators in town. We know exactly where they are. And once the electricity has been off after a period of time, it is in the protocol that Chief Altgeld has put together that somebody will be assigned to go and verify that all 17 of those elevators have worked. And so what I would say to you is, while we won't say that we'll go and inspect it, we check that emergency management exercise annually, and by virtue of doing that, I suspect that'll get looked at.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Peterson. We're now on item 3, your favorite item. Oh, it's I don't care, but somebody do
Motion
it.
to adjourn. Let's go home.
Thank you. It is 9:50 and we are adjourned.